On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're visiting artists' homes around the world where creativity and design shine. First, we'll tour a watercolor illustrator's chic home, where vibrant, nature-inspired design meets global influences to create a tropical oasis. Next, we'll visit an artist and author's colorful home, transformed from city life with vibrant hues and classic touches. Then, we'll explore the eclectic apartment of an artist, where DIY creations and art treasures have made the space a true personal gallery. Finally, we head to a vibrant city to see the whimsical, colorful home of an artist, where unique decor and handmade touches create a cozy retreat. Watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, Homeworthy. This is Tatiana. Welcome to my home.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hello, my name is Tatiana de Nicolai and I work mainly with watercolor. I'm an illustrator and you're here in my home today in Paris in the 16th district. We live here with my husband since a couple of months and my little dog, it's a poodle. We just moved in November and we've renovated the flat in 8 months, so here we are. So I started drawing when I was really young, just as a hobby. My mother was a designer. She used to work for Pierre Cardin, Louis Ferraud in the 70s. So at home, she always had a huge desk with a lot of paint brushes and watercolor, crayons, pastels. So I was initiated really early. And we used to do that on vacation during my childhood all the time. I just loved it. And eventually my dream was to do the Beaux-Arts, but I wasn't able to, so I went for economics instead, which was useful. And then I just learned it by myself and practice. And as everything, you just need a lot of experience. So eventually I managed to work for myself 4 years ago. And now it's been an incredible journey and I'm so grateful. So this flat was owned by a lady who wouldn't live there for 10 years. So it was in a very bad state. She didn't do any works for more than 50 years. So everything was to be redone, especially the bathrooms, the kitchen, etc. We didn't touch to anything on the structures of the apartment, just one of the bathrooms just to make it bigger. But the rest we just took it as it is. So it's an Haussmannian building with the moldings, the parquet, which is very typical from these buildings back in the days, the fireplaces and everything that we loved. So we just had to refresh it and obviously do all the plumbing and electricity, which is not that fun. But then the decorating part was the most amazing challenge with the carpenter. And we designed these wood panels behind me that remind me of a garden. And that was the initial point to start with the decoration of the flat, to make it feel like a garden, a tropical one, which reminds me of all my travelings that I did when I was younger. I lived in Egypt, in Morocco, in Argentina, in India, and all of that supposedly influenced this flat, I guess. And I just wanted to have a feeling when I come in this home that doesn't feel like France and Paris, even though you can still have this feeling with the architectural background of the flat, but just have this feeling of tropical and palms and beautiful wallpapers that you'll see later. We're in the entrance here. We didn't want to put too many things and objects, so it's quite neutral. We have 2 big cupboards that we had made with these little decorations that I actually got inspired from in a trip in Seville. And again, we had some mirrors put here and here just to give a bit of more space and light. It just gives you an aspect of more depth. And here we have two columns, also made out of mirror, which I find beautiful, and these parrots with fake candles that is always more convenient. And I actually found them a couple of years ago when I used to, live in different countries in flats that I did not own or rented. I didn't want to bring in furniture that I had bought, so I was buying it little by little, and I had it all stored at my parents' place. And when we finally got our own place here, I actually had a lot of things already and decided to put them here and there. So they were not bought specifically for here, but I just found the place, and I think they go well here. And here we have a little bench that reminds me again of benches that you find in gardens, especially in England. And this one was also a wedding gift. It's in very, very heavy metal. I'm going to show you the living room. Come and follow me. In our flat, we basically have everything that comes from either flea markets or auction houses or websites where you find things from secondhand, or objects as well that we got from our family members who gave them to us or didn't want them anymore. So I always find fun to say that the only thing that is new in our flat are probably our mattresses and our beds, and the rest is found here and there. I really have a passion for flea markets, for finding the gem here and there that reminds me of traveling or places. Typically in Venice 2 weekends ago, we found a flea market and I couldn't hold myself, and I bought a little souvenir that I use for my my dinners. And it's just nice to have these memories of places, of people, and this is how we mainly decorated our flats. So this is a wallpaper that we got for our wedding as a gift. We were so lucky. It's from a brand called Ixelles. They're based in London and Istanbul. It's all painted by hand by miniature painters in Jaipur. And it's called the D Dream, D for Dimona, who's the designer, and Dream because it's really a fantasy wallpaper. It doesn't make sense altogether because, as you can see, here you have a little pheasant close to a monkey. It would never happen in a normal environment, and it's the same for the trees, the palm trees, the birds, but it just feels so beautiful and so exotic. And basically what we wanted to do is, because we've had these moldings before when we bought the flat, they were white on white, and we thought, why not put wallpaper inside, just to have the effect of looking through a window. So we bought the wallpaper as a panorama, and it really feels like you're looking at something through windows. I think it's beautiful. And they made it slightly crackled. I don't know if you say that in English, but it's just fake. It's just a manner of making it old, and yeah, it's beautiful. So here we found a fun idea to have our portraits of my husband and I, and we thought it was fun to have them a little bit discreetly behind the doors. We love animals again, so they're here. So here we have a couple of furniture that I got from our grandmothers with my husband. This one, for example, is the same as the one behind. It was completely ruined and no one wanted them. We decided to give them a second life, and we reshaped them and decided to put this velvet green to make it more cozy. Here we have two other sofas that I found in an auction house in Belgium, and I recovered them as well in this beautiful yellow, just to echo the colors of the moldings, and also these beautiful chairs. This is a beautiful lamp that I got from my grandmother. It's from Tommaso Barbi in the 1960s, and it just fits very well here as it has this shape of a leaf. It's beautiful. And here we have a lamp that we got from our best friends for our wedding. It has the shape of a palm tree, so again, it's just in the theme, and it's green, so it's perfect. It's very original. So this sofa here was actually my grandmother's bed. She used to sleep in it in her 10 last years of her life in Paris. She had an apartment Rue du Bac, and it has been covered with a fabric from Braconnier, which is now part of Pierre Fray. And it's a pattern that they don't re-edit anymore, sadly, but it's one of the historical ones that they're very proud of, and they actually modernized it in much more vibrant colors nowadays, like in yellow and pink and blue. But this is one of the colors that I love the most, and I think it got us, to inspire this decoration for our home. We really love it, and it's a great piece of memory from my grandmother. These are beautiful Sicilian testa di moro, as we call them. They're beautiful. They're not that heavy, but they're made all of ceramics and hand painted. They come from near Palermo in a little village called, oh my God, I'm gonna remember. But they just look so elegant, and it's the wife and the man together as a pair. And I thought it reminded me of us both as we got it on our honeymoon. So these two chairs that are facing each other are my favorite tiger chairs. I found them recently through a friend of mine who bought them in India. I spotted them first in a little hotel, and I thought to myself, this is what I need at home. It would just match perfectly the tropical vibe we have. So they were in a beautiful little hotel, and I found the artisan who was making them in Udaipur. And he eventually told me that he didn't have any, but after a while I found them through a friend, and I love the fact that it's very old and the paint is coming off. I think this is what makes it very unique and beautiful. This is what I like about old objects, is that you don't want to give them a new patina or a new color. It's just the way it is. It's beautiful this way. I couldn't find the pair easily. I would find identical ones, but not the ones facing each other, which I think was essential to have them facing each other. So one day on Instagram, I found someone who was selling them, and it just came from Portugal, but originally they're from Udaipur. I think what makes our home different and unique with a soul is that I tried to bring most of what I have been through in my life with my traveling and my experiences abroad. I think you can find things from everywhere. I have little objects from India, from Morocco, from all my previous lives abroad, because I've been traveling for 5 years before settling really in London, before coming here. And I think it's just a mixture of old and new. Old in the sense, things that were family objects as well. I have a lot of furniture that comes from my grandmother, from my husband's family, and I always wanted to give them a second life, even if they were completely ruined. I just had to give them a little punch, and it just gave them a new life. And also new, not new in the sense buying new things, because I think the only new things we have in this flat are our beds, but buying new things in apps that are like Le Bon Coin or Celency, which are second-hand objects. So I think this is what makes it mostly exciting. Initially, the room was divided in two with a wall and big doors. We wanted to get rid of all that to create a sort of, still to create a separation, but with a wall of plants, which makes it more natural. And to keep this room more like an intimate room where we can read on Sundays, watch our movies, and be more calm. And there it's more for our friends when they come and have dinner. So this is a typical wooden structure called laiterie that you find in French gardens that usually are made, to plant roses at the bottom, and it helps them grow towards the top. And I've seen this all my childhood in my mom's garden in Belgium, so I wanted to have this here. It's not usual, obviously, to have it indoors, but I found it just like a decorative idea, and it's green, obviously, like my favorite color. And it does have this sense of garden and of separation with these palm trees just right here. My first job in London was at Cabana magazine, and I was asked to design a collection of plates. So we are missing quite a few, but these are a good example. It was called the Persia collection, and it was displayed at the Burlington Arcade in London. So this is the charger, the main plate, and the dessert plate. And it was inspired by ornamental, details from Persian aesthetics. So yeah, that was quite a while ago, but I like to hang them on the wall. So here we had this built in to have a little cozy place. Also, usually the dog sits here. I like spending my Sundays at Marché Saint-Pierre, which is a huge market for fabrics and everything. You can find whatever you want, and I made these velvet little details on this fabric, which reminds me of leopard. So it's still tropical, but it's green, so it doesn't remind too much of the animal. And I make these myself with the little pompons and find these fabrics there as well. It's just a great thing to do on Sundays. Here I have a collection of coffee table books, as we call them, but they're especially an inspiration to my drawings. So I'll show you one of them. They're absolutely beautiful. They're a recollection of birds, and as I draw many birds, you can really find these beautiful, beautiful birds. And it's important for me to have these botanical inspiration for my drawings. So I always seek these beautiful books. Here we have our library because we love to read, especially my husband. We wanted to mix it with little objects. These are a little monkey collection from my grandmother in ceramics that she gave me here and everywhere. We also pull down the screen to watch some movies sometimes. And here we have, as usual, some furniture that comes from auction houses. These are beautiful heads of animals that are made out of copper. And the vase from Vincent Darré that I helped him to make while he did a collaboration with a brand called Oka in UK. Let me walk you through the dining room. So here we are in the dining room. Here we're in our favorite room in the apartment. Is the place where we had a crush when we first visited it. And we absolutely love this gray cream color that is married with this bleu céladon green color. We think it's very nice to keep the effect of the old, not to renovate it so much. That's why we kept it as it is, and I think it lived through everyone's lives and past tenants here because it's been made to measure to fit this room. So when the agency told us that they would take off the wall panels to put them somewhere else, we were so disappointed and we didn't want to buy the flat anymore. And in the end, after negotiations, we managed to keep them and we're so happy about it. It's really a charming and safe place here where our guests feel so comfortable. Here I always play with different table settings. So I change always the color of the napkins, of the table sets, of the tablecloth, and I play with what I find at the florist. So depending on the season, I choose the flowers. Now we have peonies. This is garlic flowers. I love putting huge flowers here in these beautiful vases that I found in an auction house in Belgium. And I think green and blue always work well together, with white obviously. So as I'm not a great cook, I always put everything in the decoration so my guests can forget about what they're eating for a while. So here I like to mix blue and green and white, which I think are colors that go very well together. I chose to have these little bowls for starters, which are from a crystal manufacturer called Val Saint-Lambert in Belgium. They make these of every color. I have them in blue, I have them in yellow, and they're perfect for a little starter. And these plates come from my husband's grandmother. They're called Oiseau du Paradis, bird of paradise, and you have them for every plate, every bowl, every serving plate. They're beautiful, they're hand painted. Now you can still buy them actually at the Gien manufacturer, which is in Burgundy. And they just remind us of Pierre's grandmother. She was so kind to give them to us. I always play with these table mats that come from Casa Lopez. It's a store in Paris. They have them in every color. They're very easy to use and they give them a bit more fun to the table. I also have these bread plates that I made for my wedding with our initials and the dates. They're made of porcelain, and I find them very easy to use for bread, and they're a great memory of our wedding. This lamp is a great gift from a friend of mine. They're made near Rome by an artisan, and they're actually two lamps that I've put on top of each other. And you can actually continue to build them up like this. I chose those colors. You can choose everything you want. I wanted to have this yellow for our living room, and this color to remind here. So I'm really happy about it, and you can really move it easily. It's so light, and it's called. It's from a brand called Parana Studio. They're handmade in Rome. I think I started off by thinking about the green color, which is my favorite color. It's a color that I use very frequently in my drawings because I actually mainly draw animals, flowers, and foliage. And that's the predominant color in nature. So I started off with green, and I think when you like something, you know, and you work with crushes, I'm just thinking about when you buy things, it always seems to go together, even if it's so different. Here we're in the corridor. It's a typical corridor of 16 meters long that you can find in these Haussmannian buildings. They're usually quite dark and quite sad and very narrow, so I wanted to find a way to, first of all, make it larger. So that's why on the left-hand side I put mirrors all the way down, just to have a duplication, as we say, of this wallpaper that I made specifically for this flat. It's 16 meters long by 2 meters high, and it also represents everything I love, which is nature, animals, palm trees, and obviously the green color. Every door has a frame of these wooden structures, you know, that we find in French gardens called des treillis, and I've had them painted all around each door, which makes it a bit more grand, I guess. So I wanted to give a bit of warmth with this warm light in this corridor, and I found these, they're very decorative. They were not scones. I had them made into scones, and they're just leaves that remind me also of, you know, tropical environments. So here I have made a carpet of 16 meters long with the scalloped edges. I think it's nice to have these scalloped edges that really break the fact that this corridor is so linear. And I've made it in collaboration with Jaipur Rugs, which is an amazing company in Jaipur. We're continuing a collaboration for next year with a collection of 7 rugs. So this was a first start. And I think the color is quite bold, pinkish. It wouldn't suit everyone, but I think it gives a lot of joy and a lot of happiness to this corridor. Here we wanted to have this little guest bathroom to open like a cupboard, basically, because it's more convenient. And we just decided to put a little fontaine, which is not that typical. Usually it's maybe meant to be outside in gardens. So this was one of the challenges that I found during our works, because they didn't really want to put this here. They thought it was quite difficult, the fact that it was in a corner, and they didn't know how to fix it to the wall. And they used to recommend me some normal water basins that you find in every store that are square or rectangular. But I was so, I really wanted to have this one here, and I think it's so charming. It just reminds me of Provence in the south of France. And here, a little recollection of some tiny little frames that I make a collection of. I don't have so many, but the plan is to have the whole wall covered. And there are pictures of us, pictures of our family, pictures of things we like, so it's nice. I'll show you around our bedroom. So our bedroom is this, we started off with this color. Why did we choose this color? Because it's a bit pinkish red color. So I found this Suzani in Jaipur again when I was traveling there a year ago, and I thought the grenades was a beautiful symbol for love and for the fact that this is our bedroom and it's we got married recently. So I started off with the color of these grenades. I think it's great to start off with something for a room. So this was my point where I started off. And I wanted our room to be also a little bit calm and not with too many patterns and colors. So I just went for a decoration of these moldings with the same color that you can find here again. I painted those myself on Sundays, on weekends, and also these little collection of birds that I bought in India. So they also have this red color that I find very reassuring and calming. This is the dog's favorite spot. And here we have two lamps that I bought also on La Redoute. Very simple lamps, but yet they're beautiful. And I think it's nice for us young people to find beautiful objects in very affordable places as well. Also on a wall console, which I thought was nicer to keep some space for the bedside table with a carafe and some books. So I thought it was nice to have here on these wall consoles that I found in Belgium in an auction house, something else than maybe what you usually find, which are porcelain little objects. And these vase buds are just beautiful. You can put whatever you want inside. It's a bit difficult to change, but I think it's fun. Here we have the bathrobes that I design. They're made out of my own drawings, hand painted, and they actually are the same ones that you find on my wallpaper. So I think it's nice to have a wallpaper designed with the same illustrations that I have on my bathrobes. They're made of velvet and silk, pure silk. So these are what I make. So here I added also a little bit of color. I thought the yellow, because it's not that sunny always in Paris, I thought with the light it just gives that aspect that you would have some sun inside. So I thought it was really nice to have this bright yellow. And also the tiles, I designed these tiles myself. I thought I loved the terracotta star with the green color again. And it reminds me of maybe Morocco. I lived in Casablanca for a few years, and it just felt like a little bit like a Moroccan bathroom. And these are some sconces that I found also on an app called Sedency. They sell a bit of everything. It's called the brocante en ligne. And I just find that gold leaf or something similar gives so much light as well. I think my style in interior design is very colorful, quite bold, eclectic and maximalist. So in the sense that I would put colors and patterns and stripes and everything together. Also mixing old and new in the sense modern, more contemporary objects and very old ones. So for example, we have a bed that is actually turned into a sofa in our living room, and it has a braconnier textile, which is back from the 60s or the 50s, and actually they don't produce it anymore. Or I have marquetry objects that are mixed with quite modern things. So I think the mixture is great when you know how to, put it together. So here we're in the kitchen. It's a typical kitchen location of these Haussmannian buildings and apartments. So at the very end of the flat, we didn't want to bring the kitchen so far in front of the apartment. We wanted to keep it here. It's a bit dark and you don't have so much light, so I wanted to bring light by using yellow again. Yellow that brings a lot of joy. And we created this roof, which is more like a tent, and also like the rays of sunshine. So it gives me joy to be in the kitchen. As I'm not a great cook, I just try to enjoy time in this room that I actually find quite lovely. So here we designed the tiles, again in green, which is our favorite color. And also to remind the treillis, these wooden structures that you find in French gardens that are on here. I put them on the floor and also here. just to remind the aspect of gardens and the fact that you would feel basically in a little garden under a tent. And here we have a little spot for the breakfast. We just sit here, it's casual, it's cozy. I had made these cushions with fabric from the Marché Saint-Pierre, which is a big market where they have a lot of fabric. And it's just a cozy way to spend our mornings with our little dog. So here we have a couple of frames. This is our wedding invitation. This is also the wedding invitation. Here it's a menu from our engagement party, and this is from our engagement in France when we did a hot air balloon trip. And actually this is basically where I took my inspiration from for the flat, because it's the recurring theme. It's these treillis that show the jardin à la française, and also added with obviously palm trees and this tropical theme. So I think this was a great inspiration for our flat. Here is the guest bathroom, which is inspired by India. So here with the wood carpenter, we managed to kind of redesign what you find in Rajasthan in typical beautiful palaces. So it's the shape of the windows there. It's again scalloped edges, but it just has this feel of India where I spent a year and a half and I loved it. We chose this blue color, which is the bleu majorelle from Morocco, because I think it's so vibrant and it reminds us all of Morocco. It's a tiny, tiny little bathroom, but I think it's cozy. I added these linen curtains just to have a feel of, you know, more intimacy if you want to close it, but it's just very tiny and cute. Home for me means a place where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable, where you feel happy, where it's a safe place. For me, this is translated by colors, by joy, by hosting a lot of friends all the time. That's what we love with my husband. So for me, home is a place where people love coming and hanging out. And that's what they tell us when they're sitting in the dining room for hours. They say we could stay until early mornings just chatting with the candles and everything. So that's the most important for me, I guess.
Greetings, Homeworthy. I'm Jeff Caldwell. I'm down here in Pennsylvania in Chestnut Hill, the Garden District of Philadelphia. We're visiting my friend Kate Shelter, who I've known for 20 plus years, based in New York City. We both worked in creative fields, and we've had a lot of fun over the years, and I'm delighted to be here at her family home that she shares with her husband and 3 children. So come on inside, let's go.
Hi,
Hi,
Jeff.
Kate. How are you?
Come on in.
Mwah. So happy to be here.
Come on in. Let
It
me
is
show you
so
around.
beautiful in Chestnut Hill.
Thank you. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Kate Shelter. I'm an artist and a creative director and the author of Classic Style. And Jeff is my dear friend. I have over almost 30 years of experience working first in fashion and art direction, and then illustration and art. I'm so happy that you're here. We're gonna have a lot of fun looking around our house, which is outside of Philadelphia in the Garden District of Chestnut Hill.
And it's so much fun to be in your home, but what's wild is that we've known each other for almost probably 20 years or so. We started as little 20-year-olds in New York City running around, and I feel like my first memory of you was when you were photographing for Vogue.
Yes.
And you were everywhere at every party, and you always looked so beautiful and put together, like you were actually one of your subjects that you were there to capture. You always looked so great and so stylish. And there was just such personality and joie de vivre that came through not just your photographs, but how you are in person. And so that's like one of my first memories of you, was sort of shooting around, parties in New York City. And then, you kind of like really moved into more creative direction. You were working with brands, and we would again see each other at dinners and parties. And we just have had that fun relationship, dancing, you know, the night away places.
Bungalow 8.
Good old
the era of
Bungalow 8.
Bungalow 8.
And it was just always such a breath of fresh air to run into you and to see you. And then further, you know, later on, I actually had met your husband a number of years before.
Before I knew him.
And it was so great to see you guys get together, and now to see the life that you've built. It's so refreshing and heartwarming to see what you guys have done together.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I landed in New York City, and my first job was shooting fashion shows, both front row and backstage for Vogue. And then I took that into street style. This was back when only Bill Cunningham was shooting for the New York Times. Street style was not really captured the way it is today. And I just had so much fun dressing up for the job. And I have such a love of creative expression and personal style that was very much about fashion at the time, but then it translated into your house, your apartment, your car, your sports. Like it's the whole life experience of the person and the authenticity that comes through in personal style. I think that the love of New York City and the people that live there, you know, the quote unquote diehard New Yorkers, which I still consider myself, by the way, like New Yorker living in Philadelphia.
And let's talk a little bit about this house in particular. When you guys moved back to Chestnut Hill, it's a really beautiful traditional style, kind of like outside of Philadelphia suburb kind of house.
Yes.
We were driving around.
Stone house.
It's a stone house.
It's called, known as Wissahickon schist, which is a kind of silvery rock that has a lot of metallic in it, and it crumbles very easily, and it's the bedrock of a large part of Philadelphia. The stones are about this big. Gray stone houses are a part of Philadelphia.
Right. And why this house? What drew you to this house? What do you love about being in this specific house?
Well, we moved here during COVID. We actually lived across the street, and we were renting that house from a friend of ours, and they moved back in. The owners came back.
Sure.
And we also had a third child who, our crib was in the hallway because we had outgrown the house at just the right time when the owners came back. And this house we knew was available, and we were introduced to them. We're very lucky to be here. And I remember thinking, this is a bigger house than I've ever lived in. And so I think immediately there was that feeling of like, okay, we have to furnish everything. But we had bedroom doors just closed and empty for the longest time until we were ready. And still the house has this nice airy quality. I like houses to feel like they're breathing. I like furniture that has a lot of legs and not a lot of upholstery that hits the floor. Because I like the energy that goes under furniture that way. I love a room to feel like confetti has gone off and things have just sort of like landed ever so slightly in just the right place. So I don't like things to feel too nailed down, too red, white, and blue, too like bougie.
And that's what I love, is you have the bones, the architectural bones are beautiful from, I think this house is 1890. So beautiful kind of like architectural details and bones, great proportions, but then you have a Scandinavian, you know, dining table, and then you have mixed with the rattan chairs in the living room. So you have the bones that sort of create that beautiful formality, but then you create a more less formal and fun and punchy decor, so that it kind of brings that formality down a little bit.
This is the entry hall.
So gracious.
This is like classic, you know, center hall.
Yes.
Entry with the beautiful staircase. And here we have this like amazing gardening table that my sister called us just a few weeks ago and said, I don't have room for this in my house anymore. Do you want it? And so we figured out how to get it into our house, and I love it because again it has this beautiful green color. We have just the normal things that we use, like my hat and this little fox that belonged to my husband when I first met him, and then I've hung one of my grass tennis courts above it.
Which also in that beautiful green that you love.
Yes, and
it's also important, obviously you can tell, this is sort of like the grand central of the house, this
Yes.
main thoroughfare, and your love of tennis and all the activities that the families partake in.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna go play tennis,
off to
bye.
go. Absolutely. But you can tell that there's so much activity right in this area.
Yeah, and it's like, I definitely paint things that I use.
Right.
And so that's the number one inspiration for my artwork is real life. And sometimes they're not things that I use personally, but things that I admire that other people use. But mostly it starts from my own passions. Like my sport is tennis. I've played since I was, seriously, since I was 11, and I played in high school and tournaments, all that kind of thing. So I use that as a reference, and I always love the graphic quality, the lines on the court, and it's so simple. And I find real beauty in that. Everything you love works together. I do love having, the energy that's able to flow under the table, showing the legs, not too much clutter, if possible.
That's hard with 3 little children.
Yeah.
And these, the sconces.
Yeah, so these were here when we got here, and they had these glass covers, and so I bought these cheaper little shades because I wasn't going to replace everything. I'm kind of use what you got kind of person. I just took my own watercolor paper and I painted these and I cut them to size, and so that's sort of like a little cheat thing that I did, and I did more over here. More
confetti. And then the most beautiful confetti, all of the family pictures.
Yeah, so these are just a bunch of family photos and artwork from my son up here.
I love the mixture. You have silver, but then there's plastic, and then there's wood, and it's just that mixture that makes it feel cozy and casual and not too formal.
This was a Valentine's gift for my husband. It's just stickers I put on a frame during COVID because we couldn't go out and shop for anything, so I just took an existing frame and doctored it up. This is our guest book, which we got when we got married. And it starts with everybody signing it at our wedding, and there's been many, many opportunities where we have forgotten to take this guest book out when we posted.
It's in a perfect spot.
Yeah, but it has pretty much everyone we love has signed this guest book, and if you haven't, it's probably because we forgot to take it out.
Because you're having too much fun.
We're having too much fun. More photos over here. We have, this was a needlepoint S that my sister gave us for Christmas, for Shelter and for Schumacher. Also frames that my son made preschool. So this is kind of this ends up being a space where my kids slide down the stairs on towels or blankets. They put on music and they run around on the rug and they do cartwheels and they build forts here. And we also have huge train tracks they like to build here. So, the temptation was okay, put a table centered under the lamp and that would be the more traditional thing to do. But I just like to have
dancing room,
dance party,
roll up the rug,
roll up your sleeves. And so now I can take you into the living room.
Wonderful.
It was painted like a yellow color, and it's north facing, and it's incredibly overgrown with bushes. So in other words, it doesn't get a lot of light, and it could easily feel cold. And unfortunately, these beautiful fireplaces do not function anymore. So how do you create warmth in a dark space? The first thing was to cover up the fireplace so that you can still see the beautiful mantle, but not feel sad every time you look and realize that you can't light a log. So I put this huge photograph of me and Chris dancing at a party that I blew up and just had mounted to gator board.
Which is a great representation of how we met back in the
Yes,
day.
this
is exactly
the
a perfect
nightclub
representation of those years.
This was taken the year that we got engaged, but before our wedding. So we're at a party, and
Having a
it
good
just
time.
was captured the perfect moment. This is one of my large peonies. This is actually a limited edition print that's made from an original, and then we blew it up enormous. And so I think that choosing the pink wall color was the first thing I did. I said I knew I wanted to be warm. I don't want it to be like Barbie pink. And I looked at a lot of books, and again, I had pinks in mind that I knew looked great in other spaces, but because this is going to tend towards gray very easily because it sort of has a darker natural light, you just have to do trial and error. And I did maybe 15 different like tester sheets. The other cheat for when you're painting a room is don't put the tester right on the wall. Put it on a large piece of illustration board, and you can move it around the room and see what it looks like next to furniture. And then you can reuse it for other rooms. So I keep all my testers, so you never know.
And you write the company and the name on the back so that you keep it all
number.
organized.
This is Benjamin Moore Fairest Pink. And I think I even looked online, like Architectural Digest was like, here are the 20 best pink colors. And one of the colors in that article was the first color I painted this room and realized it was all wrong. And so you really just never know. You have to end up going with what you love.
And I love these the Japanese maple leaves.
Yeah, I cut those out of the driveway.
Gorgeous.
Cut them out of the tree.
But again, like the texture and bringing the outside in.
Yeah, bringing the outside in.
It adds so much to a room.
These lampshades are sort of like a little experiment of mine where this lamp was white and I painted it the Pharaoh Ball caulk green, sort of glossy. And then I just drew my geranium leaves. I painted them on just to sort of see, because one of my dreams is to develop a fabric and a wallpaper line, and I'm working on that now. So this is how I test it out in my own house. Like I figured out a way to cut the paper and then wrap it around, and it's just, you know, a lampshade is a hat for a lamp, and so it's all about the right shape. And then I'm going to show you how I did this here. You know, just using these clips in the back here. And then
I love
it's
it.
like
Your laboratory in effect.
Yeah, lab in effect. Just warning, don't turn the lamp on because it might blow up in flames.
It might catch fire. And this sofa couch.
Oh yeah, this is a great sofa.
I know, and you know
great
what I
story.
Okay. Yes,
so we moved
tell.
back. So this room ends up looking like, you know, Ivy at the Shore restaurant circa 1984. This is a Ralph Lauren
home.
Yellow chintz. This couch belonged to a friend of mine that I knew growing up, and when we moved back, her mom was moving and downsizing their house, and they had an estate sale in their house. And I think I paid like $150 for this couch. Another friend put it in the back of their pickup truck, carried it in here. I gave him a bottle of wine. You know, the rest is history.
Yeah.
I did update it because the cushions are a little not as fluffy. So I had these beautiful down cushions custom made with Lisa Corti fabric. And they're so like, you can hug them. It makes the couch, it now becomes half down. And then I have these beautiful John Robshaw pillows. And again, everything you love goes together. I
feel like Mr. Lauren would be so happy that this sofa is still in use.
Yeah, like it's sort of like this is the intersection of like the old traditional Chestnut Hill with like the modern Kate version.
And these rattan chairs are just great.
Yeah, I bought these on Craigslist, and we rented a U-Haul, my husband and I, and we drove out to New Jersey and picked them up.
Was that the same trip for the sideboard or a separate trip?
No, there's so many trips. I have a saint of a husband who's always game to like put something in the back of his truck or help me pick up furniture. This is a beautiful Pierre Frey fabric, which I love because it looks like brush strokes.
And your beautiful console table.
This was another friend who was moving out of town, and she said, I have this, what is it called? The Parsons table. In this amazing green lacquer color. And I was like, perfect, I have just the right place for it. And so that came in here very nicely. And then the artwork, this is a Damien Hirst print. I think this was the first major piece of artwork. It was a gift. It was the first piece of artwork I ever kind of had that was like an esteemed piece. And
I remember that in New York. That was
this
in your
is the
apartment
best
in New York.
piece of artwork because you can literally put it in any color room and it goes.
Yeah.
And I love that, and it has personal meaning behind it. This is a John Darien settee that's covered in this red Belgian linen. But what happened is with our kids, they started climbing on it and it became very threadbare. So rather than reupholster it while my kids are still 3, 5, and 11 and getting dirty fingers on everything, I just threw a tablecloth over it and it works. And it brings in the color of the pink striped Dury rug. And so it's just another way of like, you can reinvent things and put them in different rooms in different houses.
And this gallery wall is so great.
Yes. This is an iteration of a gallery wall that we had in our last apartment in New York. And I actually used a photograph of that when we hung this, because when you figure out a gallery wall, it's sort of like putting a puzzle together. So I just used a reference that we already had, and it has artwork, my own artwork. It has these lipsticks. This is one of the original paintings I did when I was on vacation, painting what I had packed with me. This is a figurative drawing that I did in college of a live nude model. Hugo Guinness. It's a photograph that I was the art director and stylist for an old Hollywood shoot that I did when I was in New York. Picture of me like 9 months pregnant with my first daughter. This is an Arthur.
Is that in Cape Cod?
Yes, it is.
I love it. You can totally feel that with the gangway and the dock in the backyard.
I was so hot and so pregnant, and I got up at like 7 in the morning and I went swimming thinking no one will notice me. And who notices me but the one photographer who's also a member at our club. He said, can I go get my camera and I'll take a picture of you? And then we had a gelatin silver print made out of it, and Chris gave it to me as a gift.
I love that.
This is a $15 ceramic yard sale find. That's been with me for 20 years in lots of different apartments. This is my friend Mike Weymouth's painting of the beach in Tulum. We bought this, we went to Arthur Elgort's studio in New York, and we got this, and I love it. It's Kate Moss riding an elephant, and I believe it's in Nepal or India. And then some of my paintings, sunglasses, geranium. This is a needlepoint of birds.
Love it.
So again, whatever you love, it all goes together. These are some turbans that I bought from John Robshaw. They're not his fabric, but they're actual Indian turbans that are lined with Indian newspapers. And we wear them when we go to when we have people over for fun.
Party hats.
Party hats. But I love how they're like graphic shape.
It's clever, It's like the texture, the pattern. They all play so beautifully in this room.
Yeah, and I love John Robshaw's fabric.
And the slipper chairs.
And this is a little a note tucked in. This is from Christmas time. My daughter wrote to her little fairy, because we play that game where you have to hide the elf all over and. Anyway, I just think it's sweet to leave that in there. It's like a little memory.
Yes.
We don't know how much longer she'll want to write those notes for. And this is a Guy Wiggins painting of Washington Square Park in New York City. And so...
New York's always with you.
New York's always with me. So a few other things to point out is I painted these little side tables that were natural wood. I painted them in the same green as I painted the lamp. And so you'll start to see through lines. Like, I always think it's great to have certain elements from one room carry over into the next. And that can be color, that can be a certain fabric.
And it's fitting that you have Haute Bohemians on the ottoman.
Oh gosh.
I feel like this is a sort of representative of that sort of style movement, the book that Miguel Flores Viana did a couple of years ago.
I love that book.
It's so inspiring, and you know, I love that that's front and center.
Mm-hmm. And this candelabra is, my sister gave me as a gift, and I just like filling it with all different colors. And again, the confetti vibe.
Exactly.
So that's pretty much.
What a cozy, comfortable, livable room.
Thank you. Yeah, and the kids like to jump on all the furniture. Doesn't matter how many times I tell them not to, they do it anyway. So.
Well, even though you are a New Yorker at heart, you grew up here in Chestnut Hill in Pennsylvania,
yes,
outside of Philadelphia, and you had your parents here, your siblings, and now you're back creating your own life with Christopher and your children. And I think it's sort of apropos that we're here, not
yes,
too far from where you grew up.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a homecoming, and sometimes I can feel like I have, you know, ghosts from the past, not bad ghosts, but just there's a lot of spirits. There's a lot of memories here. And for sure, when we were, you know, it took us about a year and a half to extricate ourselves from New York. I was sort of leaving, kicking and screaming. Although we were leaving because I was pregnant with our second child, which we were so excited about. And we just knew that when that happened, we would need more space.
Right.
And, you know, we looked around, we did the whole sort of check out all the different areas that were close enough to still get back to New York. And in the end, I just said, I know that I loved growing up in Philadelphia, and we used to come into New York City all the time when I was a girl and in high school. I always kind of just knew I was gonna live in New York. I just was aware that there was this other place, but Philadelphia is beautiful. We live in a very bucolic setting. It's sort of known as the Garden District of Philadelphia, has very historic houses, and sort of like a not overly manicured feeling, where the plants are growing wild, and I just love that. It's not too precious or pretentious. The challenge has been to evolve my creativity and my personal style as a mother, and having 3 children now, and keeping myself interested and feeling that inspiration, even though I'm not in New York City. And how do I create that for myself? And how do I make my own life that's not my parents' life? You know, how do Chris and I raise our kids in a way that's very authentic to us?
I love that you said that you find Chestnut Hill to be unpretentious and not too precious, because I think that where you grew up is actually a great way to not that we're defining your style, but I think those are 2 characteristics of your style. And I think as we walk around the house today, you'll see there are beautiful, precious things, but they're presented and they're mixed in an eclectic way that doesn't feel pretentious. You know, it's not too precious. It's beautiful. There's great heritage with some of the pieces, but you really mix multiple different sort of like either genres or countries or backgrounds of different design movements all together. And I think that creates a very creative and cozy and familial way to live.
Yeah, I mean, the number one rule for design and art is it has to be something that you love, period, full stop. The wonderful thing about having your own space is that you have the liberty of experimentation and trying things and making mistakes. I think that's the difference between having your own house and maybe being like a professional interior designer.
Right.
Is that, for example, when we moved into this house, I knew I wanted a pink living room because the room faces north, and I wanted it to be cozy, and I didn't want it to feel, I wanted it to feel unexpected and just like, I love the color pink. We painted it a Pharaoh Ball Nancy's blushes, which I had loved in other places, and it just did not work. I came in and the painters were done, and I said, okay, I made a mistake. So then I went down the rabbit hole of choosing, 15 different Benjamin Moore pinks, and just, I had a lot of fun with it, and I eventually found the right pink. It had to be a lot lighter. So case in point that whether you're hanging a picture or choosing a paint color or, you know, I continuously move things around the house. I rehang things. I hold objects in my hand and walk all over the house. And I say, like, do you want to be here? Do you want to be here? Do you want to be here? My friend John Darien had a great tip for me years ago. He said, take pictures of things in groups that you like, and then that will help you, you know, make a composition in your house. But I think that you want to have groupings of objects that are friends. And sometimes there's like the odd guy out or the odd girl out, and that wonkiness makes it work. It makes it not feel too like perfect.
Right. Speaking of John Darien, I'm glad you brought his name up because I feel like you probably have been inspired, whether they're friends or people people's whose aesthetic you love.
Yeah, I love John, and we were first friends. We both spent a lot of time in Cape Cod, and we met in New York City. He was the first person to sell my original watercolor paintings. Hashtag Kate's Watercolors.
Out of his wonderful emporium down on 2nd Street, I think it is.
His store. So that was like, I remember, again, just approaching him being like, well, what would you think if maybe, and he was like, sure, let's try it. And the other thing he told me, because I remember I brought, you know, just a portfolio of unframed paintings to him, and we kind of decided which ones, you know, the grouping of maybe 20 paintings, which ones we would frame. And he said to me, he's like, don't think of what's going to sell. Think about what you love and think about the grouping of paintings and objects that you want to put together. And that has been advice that I come back to a lot. Okay, this is the dining room, and I love it. It is painted Faro and Ball Mizzle, which is this beautiful gray green that we've had in 4 different houses and apartments. And it fills with natural sunlight, so the chromatic green really comes out with the sunlight. Over here we have these French reproduction settees that are covered in this like beautiful pink Belgian linen, and the Brunswick and Feast Les Touches.
Yes.
Had these little like...
The classic.
Love these round little bolsters.
Bolster pillows. And I love the way that the pink really pops. And, you know, as we were saying, it's like you have this like French, you know, inspired settee, but then you have a really fun pop of color that brings the sort of like formality down, and it's fun. And
it's pink and green, but it's secondary grayish pink and green. It's not like the expected, it's not the expected pink and green. Then I have all these plates here that I've painted.
And collected throughout the years.
Yeah, mixed with some sort of like more traditional English ceramics.
Yeah.
I painted these with the hearts. Some artwork from my daughter, a tiny little avocado. And just like a collection of objects that, some matchbooks from my favorite restaurants.
And this Scandinavian table is absolutely stunning.
Yes,
there must be a story behind this.
Yeah, this was like the first big furniture purchase I think I ever made. We bought it from friends of ours in Cape Cod who have a business called Design Works. And they specialize in Scandinavian country antiques. And it's what I call, it's called scrub pine, meaning it may have been painted at one time, but then they dipped it and removed all the paint. So it actually reads as like wooden floors, and it has this great patina of all the dings and oil and stains on the table. And I just love it. For more formal in the winter, I like to cover it in a tablecloth. But in the summery, warmer months, I love seeing the natural wood.
Right.
And it actually comes apart. All the pieces are carpentry pieces that fit with like they all fit together.
Yeah.
And so there's no nails or glue. It's just all fit together that way. And then the top just lifts off.
The original IKEA, assemble at home.
Yeah. This is much easier to assemble.
You're right. No instructions needed.
Yeah. And then this is a bench that my daughter made in 5th grade in wood shop.
That's so great.
It's a
Look
It's
at the
a
details.
Quaker meeting house
I
bench.
love these little details down here.
Yeah, it has the detail
It's
here.
so great. The next generation already showing their capable skills.
And then we have this bench, which is a beautiful sort of classic American piece that we bought at an estate sale in Cape Cod. And it's like super banged up. It was probably in somebody's garage or, workshop. And, the paint is scuffed. It's all dinged up. I had to put tape on it because there was like a nail poking through. But when we sit here as a family, the kids always sit here on this side because it's a little higher and just less formal, and people can slide in and out.
And as you were saying, it's like no matter where that bench came from, you see the life in it, the stories, the generations,
the patina.
The patina. I love it. And then this, the sideboard and the tea set, it looks so great.
This is the sideboard that Chris had in his bachelor Upper East Side apartment when I met him. He bought this at auction.
Is this the one he went to pick up in New Jersey?
Yes, and I was like, I'll come with you.
So were you more interested in the sideboard or Chris?
I was really interested in the fact that there was a guy that I was dating who liked going to auctions and liked furniture. And then this is my great-grandmother's silver tea set. And very fascinating, when we were watching Downton Abbey, there's a close-up with the exact same tea set. And so I don't know if it's from that same exact time or if it was just a prop, but I was like, wait, pause. And I was like, that's the one. It has the exact decorative elements. And I love to use these for vases. I once had a tea party and I used the whole thing. These are other wedding gifts. This is a quail that we named George. We bought it on eBay. When we were still dating, it hung in Chris's apartment, and it's getting a little frail on the ends. I think it's sort of disintegrating.
It's in mid-flight.
These are 2 French reproduction chairs that I think I bought for $5 at an estate sale or a yard sale. So there's a real mixture of high and low.
Which is the beauty of this house. The mixture, it's all in the mix.
And up here we have this beautiful Astier de Villette tureen that was a wedding gift, flanked by these amazing sheep that my mom gave me. They belong to my grandmother, and I said, I just love those. And if you look at the eyes, these sheep are rolling their eyes. They're like, girl.
And I love the texture of the wool on the sheep. I mean, you just don't see
and
that.
you can put
are these
little
English, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they are. You can put England. You can put flowers in them, and I've just put these quail feathers that were actually, Chris has gone on a few hunting trips, and he brings back feathers from his hunting trips, and so I kind of use them. I always love upward movement when there's a high ceiling. And
feathers just give such a unique texture.
Yes.
The sort of fraying of the edges.
Yeah, and these are like littler feathers that we've collected on the beach with our kids. And, it just brings, again, that natural element inside. And candles, I'm a huge fan of taper candles. And I love them in pink, purple, green, all the, untraditional colors. They can echo the flower colors and obviously the pink of the pink settee.
Well, and also we should talk about the flowers because you have such a beautiful way of arranging flowers. And, yesterday we went down to the farm, to the cutting garden, and we just, all of these dahlias, and we took beautiful branches, and you just arrange things beautifully. And as you said, it's like confetti. It's like a party in a vase.
A party in a vase. So my friend Andrew Olson has this amazing farm about 15 minutes from our house, and he lets people come and just, pick an armful of their own stems. And he has the most incredible dahlias. And I love a flower arrangement to look the way flowers look when they're growing in the garden. In other words, long stems up high. I like things to go out and up. And like you said, party in a vase. I love all the pinks and burgundies and little splashes of color and bright colors from the zinnia. And I also have these paper flowers, which are from my friend Livia Chetti from the Green Vase. And these are great because in the winter when it's harder to
Right.
find the blooms, paper flowers, you know, I've mixed in a feather here as well. I think in bigger spaces, it's just the way you have drama introduced from a ceiling light fixture. If you can go up with a bouquet or a plant or something that's sculptural that breaks up the space to give it like a depth of field, that's always creates intrigue. And you can do that with plants, you can do it with flowers or sculptures if you have sculptures.
And we have a few pieces here, but I know that you love to entertain, you love to cook, you love to bring people into your home and share meals, share just sort of like a vibrant time. Tell us how you like to entertain here.
Well, what I really love to do is host potlucks because I love to cook for like 6 to 8 people max. And then after that, I think it becomes stressful and you have to either have help or you have to have less guests.
Right.
Because you won't be able to relax and enjoy your guests because you'll be too busy cooking. And
these are beautiful.
but when I have more than 10 people to the house, it's always, if it's not a potluck situation, it's I'll bring a salad, I'll bring a dessert,
Right.
you know, I'll make the main course. And so friends, we all kind of share the responsibilities, and that way you are surprised with what other people bring. But yeah, I always have everybody put all the food on the table, and then we always pull the chairs out to the side. You know, you can grab a plate, sit here on the windowsill. It's sort of like we pull the settees up to the table. People can sit wherever they want. They can take it into the living room. They can sit on the staircase. It's just sort of like, again, trying to break up that formal quality that I do associate with growing up here, and trying to make it less formal, more playful, more available to people of all ages. So
I can just imagine all the children running around trying to get first dibs on
Yes.
the hors d'oeuvres.
yeah,
and,
that's the other benefit of sitting kids on a bench. It's like they're like locked in. Although it still doesn't last very long.
Right, exactly, for 5 minutes.
One more thing I want to show you is this is a stool that my grandmother did the needlepoint for. It has my birth year and my name, and she made one for all of her grandchildren.
So
and I got
special.
a giraffe.
And was there any significance behind the giraffe for Kate?
No, I don't think so. That's a good question. But once my mom moved from the house that we grew up in, she gave these to all of us. And so this has been in all of my apartments and now our house here.
In your book, you talk about do's and don'ts. You buy things that you love and buy things that are special, buy things that perhaps are important or have a pedigree. And you'll see today as we're going around the house, these sort of pieces that jump out at you. And I think you guys have been great at collecting throughout the years,
Yeah.
Maybe when you were living, in your apartment in New York, you bought some smaller things or a special chair, and they've stood the
come
test
with
of
you,
time.
yes.
And, they follow you where you go. And I think to your point, you're really telling the story of your lives, but also like the generations perhaps that came before you. I mean, I love, as we'll see later, your great grandmother's tea set, silver tea set that stands over here on the sideboard. And, that just by having it, it's telling a story of your family.
Yes.
And I think that everyone will see that throughout this house, that you have sort of older pieces mixed with modern pieces, mixed with bright pops of color. I think your use of color just in general is pretty brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, I love color.
I look forward to kind of taking everybody around and showing them what we're discussing here, but bringing it to life.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because one of the first dates that Chris and I had, we've been together since 2009. He bought a sideboard that is over there, very formal, dark wood. He bought it at auction, and he was sort of like, well, I'm driving to New Jersey to pick it up from the auction house. And I was like, can I come? And then we would go to auctions in New York, and you would just find stuff that in a store would be $5,000 and it would be like $150 at an auction. We bought these 2 matching settees at auction. but back when we lived in separate apartments, and then when we finally got married, we had them reupholstered and sort of made them our own again. And that was also a challenge. I remember when we came back from our honeymoon, and I think we still had 2 separate apartments. Like the leases were ending and we were going to move in together.
New York real estate issues. That
Yeah, exactly. Like it's too hard. You have to kind of keep your apartment and until you really know. And I remember we moved into our first joint apartment as a married couple, and it was bigger than any apartment that I'd lived in or he'd lived in. And we had so much extra stuff. I called, Housing Works, and I was like, we have so much to donate, And I remember being really sad because certain things just didn't fit, but we tried to keep as much as we could. But yeah, you have to blend certain things that, you might have been given from family members if you're lucky, or, one person brings from their life, the other person brings, and how do those color schemes, how do those styles go together? I mean, we have had many an argument over hanging a gallery wall, or like, where does this chair go? Because things represent something much bigger.
Right.
I think I've learned that I have to ask permission from my husband before I move something that belongs to him. He really does not like that.
And likewise, he asks you for permission too.
Yeah, well, I'm really the one who's always moving stuff around.
He just wants it to stay put.
And I had to learn that there's meaning for where he puts everything, and to try to respect that. So it's a learning process, I think. And then you add kids to the mixture, and you put something down, and then you come back in an hour and it's not where you left it. You're like, where is it? Oh, it's destroyed, or the kids have drawn on the wall, or they've decided to take all the pillows from every sofa and make a fort in the front hall. So there has to be that casual, fluid, flow in a house too.
Yeah.
You have to make room for that.
You love to cook, and it's, I would imagine, probably the most utilized room in the house.
Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get out of the kitchen. When your kids have to eat like basically every 2 hours.
Well, fortunately, you have a bar.
Yes.
Close by.
Yeah, so this is, I love to lean artwork against the wall in the bar. This is a really special photograph of Chris and I before we were engaged, running in the fields of Millbrook.
Oh, up in Millbrook, at Mishomick.
Yep. And we look very, very happy. And so sometimes you have to remind yourself of how happy you were.
And are.
Yeah, and are. When life gets to
tense.
be full of responsibility, you have to remember the freer, more carefree days.
Yes, and I love the watercolor of the code flags.
Yeah, so when Chris joined the Coast Guard, their motto is Semper Paratus, which means always ready. So I wrote that out in nautical signal flags, and then I put his initials CJS at the bottom.
I love that.
So that is nautical code for Semper Paratus CJS.
And you always have to be ready with the family.
Yeah, exactly. Everything. It always has to be ready. This is another
yes, we love
lacquer
the
company, Ice Bucket. This was his collaboration with Rita Koenig.
Yes.
Obsessed with this color, yellow. Yellow is very hard to do, and that color is perfect. And you can see it actually over here in my amazing lemon head lady, which I'm obsessed with. We like to put weeds and flowers for her hair, and the bigger the better.
Yes, brings Italy to you.
Yeah, always brings joy. A watermelon painting by my daughter. I try to frame my kids' work.
Just like your mother did for you.
Exactly. And it's like you will never draw like that again past a certain age, or paint like that again.
I don't think I could even do that now.
I remember when she painted this when she was 4 years old in preschool.
Gosh.
And I walked into her classroom, and the teacher had all the kids' watermelon drawings on the room, and I was like, I'll take every single one. I love it so much.
And probably reminds you of J.G. Mellon's on the Upper East Side.
Oh yeah, that too.
Best burger in
Now that
town.
you reminded me of it. This is
I love this modern, yes.
another great way to work with a space is to have a pendant lamp over your table. And this was sort of a splurge for me that I had on my inspiration board for a really long time, was this beautiful semi-pendant lamp from Design Within Reach. And then over the Serenade table,
yeah, of course.
which we have this kind of Pierre Dac looking tablecloth on top because otherwise my kids would have destroyed this table. And this is like this Provence fabric print, and it's covered in it's almost like wax cotton. It's like acrylic, so you can literally spill anything. This table looks brand new because it
It's protected.
never sees the light of day because my kids would destroy it. But again, this is my ideal dining situation. This table is perfect to seat 6 to 8 people. And unlike the dining room table, which is long and sort of creates this formality, this is like people are passing food across the table. Has my kids' chairs.
Right.
And
I know, again, all your collection
again,
of
the
chairs.
orphanage of chairs.
Yes. Well,
We even brought in one from the dining room with a pillow. It's just sort of like, one of these days I'm going to paint all the chairs a different color.
when you get around to it.
When I get around to it.
But the modern, I love this, the modern, the Serenade and this pendant. You know, I mean, it's simple, it's clean, you know, but set in a sort of more, you know, traditional home.
And it works because it actually, like, they kind of just disappear.
Yeah.
But there's something so satisfying. And I think that, like, you know, I must have had this table on my inspiration board for 5-10 years. And when we moved to this house, I finally said, okay, I'm going to get it because I know that I want it. And sometimes you have to give yourself permission to treat yourself.
Absolutely.
This is
this is amazing because with technology these days, I love that there's an analog calendar here to keep the family running.
There has to be. It's the only way it works because otherwise Chris has his calendar, I have mine, the kids have theirs. And this is where, like, anything that affects anyone else in the family has to be written in pencil or paper on this calendar so that you can't say, oh, well, I told you I was going to do that. It's like, has to be on the calendar. This is my family photo by the photographer Bev Hall that we had taken of me and Chris, Teddy, Daphne, and Charlotte. And so special, so special.
Absolutely.
And then this is my awesome, like, extended calendar that we change every day. And so this is my calm wall of a very hectic family schedule. And then my favorite thing to do in this room is just come in here and open this up, and, you know, you have the garden out here. So all this natural light.
On a beautiful day like this, you
On a
just let the
beautiful day.
outside in.
Don't look too closely out here because my son has built like a booby trap. Crazy thing with all of his toys and the hose.
And your geraniums.
And my
the signature
geraniums.
geraniums.
Yes, yes. So
What a beautiful place to spend time.
it's all about south-facing natural light. I'll take it.
I do want to talk to you a little bit about how you started as an artist, because I feel like that is sort of the cornerstone of your work now. Where did that begin?
How far back do you want to go?
Far back as you like. Well, we're here in
Okay,
Chestnut
yeah.
Hill, so
So I basically had a mother who always made sure I had a crayon or a colored pencil or marker or paintbrush in my hand. I have very early memories of playing dress up, like with old, you know, clothes from my great aunt's closet when she passed away, or things that my mother made. We had a chest and I could dress up. I love to dress up. And I love to paint, I love to draw. My mom always framed artwork of mine as a child. And so I think that there was always a subtle value. Like, I always felt like what I was doing mattered. And so I'm very grateful for that. And then I studied art in high school. And then I was very fortunate to have an art education at the Rhode Island School of Design. I studied design and photography there, but I always would, you know, I kept rigorous sketchbooks and I always had watercolors with me, and I would paint when I was traveling. I spent a year abroad in Italy in an honors program with the school, and this was before computers. So everything I was doing was hand-drawn letter forms. And I painted a lot. And then when I got to New York, I would paint when I went on vacation. So I always would pack my watercolor paints, small scale. And I started by actually painting whatever I would pack in my suitcase. So I started painting my sunglasses, my shoes, lipsticks, perfume, bikinis, little dresses I would pack, like hats. So all of, again, these things that were like personal style indicators, but it was very subconscious. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do a painting of this. It was just sort of like, this is what's packed in my suitcase. So this is what I'm gonna paint. I don't love painting landscapes or architectural scapes or portraits as much. And then I think from there, I had some of my artwork hanging in my apartment in New York, and friends of mine, that were in the industry, fashion industry I did a lot of styling work and art direction. They would come over to my apartment and be like, I really like that painting. And who did that? And I was like, oh, I did it. I was like, but I'm not a painter. I just did it for fun. And so naturally, people started to ask me to do illustration commissions for the same brands that I was doing fashion work for. So it was sort of like same work, different medium. And then that really took off. I mean, I think for many years, I was sort of like feeling like that feeling in New York where you're like trying to fit in, trying to find your place. And then when I started doing the illustration work, it just was so effortless and so me that I just felt like that resonated with my audience. And it didn't feel like I was trying. It was just sort of like, oh, like this is my hand. It was like handwriting. It's like, this is just what I do.
And I love how you really took that skill and talent and vision. And I remember reading in Architectural Digest, you had done an interiors mural, I believe in Maine, for Marina.
It was it was for Marina in her apartment in New York.
Oh, that was in New York. Oh, for some reason I thought it was in Maine.
Yes.
But I remember seeing that and thinking, oh my gosh, she's almost sort of like, it's like an artistic or painted version of Rose Tarlow, the famed sort of interior designer from Los Angeles, that very much brings the outside in quite literally with vines growing up the wall and such. I love this grand staircase.
Ta-da-da! So Jeff, this is my studio.
How amazing. Look at all this natural light.
Yeah, it has a south-facing window, and what would that be? East? No, north?
West.
West. Two exposures. But yeah, it gets
southwest versus northwest.
Southwest, yes. So this is the opposite of the light in the living room, which is very dark. This has a warm glow, and I always gravitate towards as much natural light as possible when I'm painting. This is my geranium mural.
Yes, this is the mural that we were referencing.
Yes, and I've put a pot of geraniums down here in the sadly unworking fireplace. But always like to incorporate real plants whenever possible.
Yeah.
And when I do my murals, I don't sketch them out. I just climb up the ladder and sort of improvise.
And this is what you did in LA for San
Klein.
Vicente Bungalows.
Yes,
absolutely.
And, I did the mural for Marina that would look very similar to this. I've done a lot of private commissions in people's houses. Different flowers, but always the same larger than life scale. And
almost like hyperbolic geraniums.
Yes. Geraniums gone wild.
Right. Out next month.
Yeah.
And so this is your over here, and this is, you have your books, and you've been featured in so many different things.
Yeah, this is sort of the computer. This is where I sit and spend a lot of time.
Right.
And then I have my inspiration boards here and here of both work that I've done, and also like whenever someone's written me a thank you note or something that's like so meaningful, and I keep these close to me because sometimes you need that extra energy just to know that you're not alone in your studio working in a vacuum, that You're part of something bigger.
A larger community.
Larger community. This was when I was painting in a peony farm, Steyer's Peonies in Chadds Ford, and a photographer that I didn't even know was there took my picture, and then it was a full page
beautiful
thing. My dad called me. He's like, "You're in the paper." And I was like, "What?" I don't read the Philadelphia Inquirer, but he's like, "It looked like you, and then I see your name here." And I was like, "Wow."
That's a really gorgeous picture.
So again, I keep, different articles of my work up here to remind me, of things that I've done and things that I want to do. These geranium murals I have up because I'm working on a wallpaper and a fabric line, and so that just helps focus me. Here's the one from
Inspirational quotations from Winston Churchill.
Yes, keep going. When you want to give up is when you actually need to keep going.
Right, absolutely.
Persevere.
And I love this. What is this sort of sketch or drawing? It looks like the geraniums on an airplane.
Yeah.
Instead
of snakes on a plane, we have geraniums on a plane. There was this artist in the 70s called Sister Carita, and she covered large, jet airplanes with her artwork. And I have this philosophy that all surfaces are material it's basically everything's a blank canvas for artwork. And I have a dream of covering, an airplane with my artwork. And you think of like Virgin Airlines or something like that. I think the reason most airplanes don't have artwork on them is because the paint is as an extra weight on the plane.
Oh.
So anyway, sometimes I dream and I just put things up. I have my Oprah quote that is inspiring. Some fabric swatches from
Is that
projects.
from the Sleepy Jones?
This is from the Lake Pajamas collaboration I did. This is the fabric we made, and this is actually the original piece of artwork that the fabric was made from.
And, I'm glad you brought up Lake, and I know you also did a collaboration with Sleepy Jones. I mean, in your work, you've really collaborated with a number of different organizations, brands, and I think that it's amazing how your work translates so many different ways. Hotel, hospitality, fashion. Also, I think I love this Chateau Marmont. I think that's just a drawing, but
yes, I did a residency there, and I painted on all things Chateau Marmont. But yeah, I've done a lot of fashion collaborations. I did one with Veronica Beard, where what's interesting is that people reach out to me and they have a vision for how they want to use my artwork, whether it's making fabric prints out of my artwork or lots of different ideas. And so for me, collaborating with brands is always like the most exciting request, because it becomes, what we can create together becomes something larger than what I would create on my own or what they would create. It's like you have this baby, and then it can go out into the world and have a life of its own.
And it's your work being interpreted through another brand, another person that maybe is seen in a way that you hadn't necessarily thought of or had envisioned from the origin.
And I have this thing about my artwork where I love to get it out into the world. Like I have a large archive in my studio, but I love for my art to go to great homes, and I like it to be out there and used and appreciated. And so there's sort of this like generous quality of like getting it out there, and when you do brand collaborations, I have pictures of people wearing my pajamas or wearing my dresses on the red carpet, and it's so fun to see the art leap from the page into the real world.
Absolutely. And this is where it all starts.
This is where it all happens. This is a table that was a dark wood color. This was in my house growing up. I believe it was in my sister's room. And before that, it was in my parents' first apartment in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it somehow came to me at some point. I think it was in my mom's garage. I painted it Dimity White by Farrow and Ball. I actually did this kind of vinegar treatment where I thinned the paint and then combed in a design, which is sort of like an Amish paint, treatment. And I have this white tablecloth from Turkey because I've worked a lot with a client in Turkey. And this is my original setup. This was actually the dining room table in our first apartment when my husband and I got married. And that's where I originally started painting, was at the kitchen table, because I didn't have a studio. I was working as a stylist and an art director at that time. And I didn't have a painting setup, so I just always left everything at the table. And then eventually when I got more space and had an area to paint, this is just the perfect size. Sorry, it's very soft, and the tablecloth absorbs any extra paint.
Right.
I use the same exact paint setup. There's a very specific palette of colors that I come back to, and brushes, and specific brand of 2B pencils.
And this looks like a new sort of body of work.
Yeah, these are some botanicals I've been working on. These are based on the same dahlias that we have in the vases downstairs. It's the same farm. I've painted at the flower farm, and then I also make arrangements and bring them back to my studio. And I have to paint as fast as I can because the flowers and their pigments change.
Right.
There's only like 2 or 3 days where they're really fresh. So those are there. And these are going to go to KRB in New York City.
Oh, great. We love KRB.
We love KRB. But you know, you'll see also I work in series, and I have, you know, I'll do a lot of smaller studies like this at my table before I do a larger work. This is sort of like figuring out color and which brush I want to use, you know, testers. So when I paint, I'm not very precious about it. I start with big pieces of paper and I score them down to smaller sizes, and I sort of treat a tester sheet the same way as I treat a large painting. I work in series, meaning like I paint like 5 to 10 paintings at one time, and sometimes I'll work on multiples if the paint is drying on one.
I love seeing the process. I mean, the way that your work ends up, it sort of looks effortless and like it's just sort of, oh, we just did this quickly. But there's so much work that goes into this. I mean, just like the testing of the colors and the amount of water and the composition. And I mean, it does take a lot of time to create these beautiful works. I
teach master classes on Zoom, and one of the things I always try to share with people is don't edit your work while you're working on it. There's like an act of painting, and then there's a finished artwork, and the two are not related. So when you're painting, the same way that you would brush your teeth or cook a meal or do the dishes or vacuum the house, it's like you're just painting. You know, like you just have to stay active and paint. And then later on, I'll come in and I'll say like, well, this maybe is my favorite, or I'll frame this one, or sometimes my favorite is not the favorite of someone else, you know, if we're editing or curating a gallery wall for a client. So it's really interesting. And I wanted to show you, this is my archive, and I'm going to take you through, this one I have open. I'll just take you through the iterations. You know, I have everything organized by subject matter.
have to say, for an artist studio, this is very organized.
Yeah,
I'm very impressed.
I'm super organized, but it's like I have all the sunglasses, and so you'll see different iterations. And a lot of these are not ones that I would, you know, frame or sell, or maybe I will later. So we have sunglasses, then we have shoes. You know, I have the Nike Air Jordans, the Vans.
Classic.
These are Common Project, the Adidas. And so it's like, you know, I might have two different, this would be an example of working in a series where I'll do one that's really small, one that's larger.
And even then, just a slight variation on color. I mean, this almost has like a gray tint, and this is a little darker black.
And I'll decide out of the three which one I want to actually frame. And probably no one can tell the difference except for me.
And those are so cool. Oh, and the
here's
Belgian
all my
loafers.
Belgians. Everybody loves the Belgians because they're so simple. They're colorful.
Yep.
These sell like hotcakes. And they're
Do you
so
have-
fun to paint.
Has Belgian Shoes, do they have one of your pieces in their store on 55th Street?
They have put my work on their Instagram for fun, but it's again, it's sort of like a crush. It's like a design crush.
Right.
It's like, I love your product. I'm going to paint it. They acknowledge that.
I live down the street, so maybe we'll have to take.
I know,
I'll
we're
take
gonna
one
do a
into
little
them
trip down there.
Yeah.
So
That's great. I
this
love
is
it.
sort of how I archive my smaller work, and then the larger work is, I have to get myself a flat file because it's getting insane, but I have, these are all boxes filled with paintings,
Yeah.
you know, color
So
studies.
organized. Very impressive.
Peonies, I have so many peonies.
And these, is this sort of you're in process on your wall
These
coverings?
are lampshades that I made. You can wear one as a hat.
Perfect.
Again, we were renting a house and it had pre-existing sconces, and I did not like the lampshades. I was so bored in the room,
Right.
and so I made these accordion pleat lampshades out of watercolor paper, tied them together with an old Hermes
Yeah.
ribbon, called it a day. And
They're very
these ones
clever.
were not a fire hazard. Some way the heat could ventilate better than the ones downstairs.
Well, I think this is a great example of what you probably are working on right now with
Exactly.
your wall
It's
coverings
like
and
I'm
fabrics.
just testing things out. This is like testing out a scallop
Scalloped
shape.
edge, sure. Yep.
And this is the sea grape pattern I did for the Colony Palm Beach. So again, it's like transitioning from the original artwork for this is very small, and we blew it up and made wallpaper out of it at the Colony. And so I just like to surround myself with a little bit of all the projects I do for clients, because now I'm trying to develop them for my own brand, for the Kate Shelter brand. And again, it's like a very simple behind the scenes process. It's like me just experimenting with things and trying out different colors, different paints. And yeah.
And I'm assuming with watercolor, you need a flat surface versus an easel,
Yes,
because obviously the water would run down the...
Exactly. I have this like Costco table that I will use, and then I keep the floor clean because I will put things in the windowsills and on the floor so that the paint can dry. You have to paint with a flat surface.
Yeah.
When I paint on location, like out in nature, I have a wood flat surface, and then I have sandbags. Because painting outside is tricky. Sometimes your painting will blow across the field. You're like, but I wasn't dry yet.
It wasn't done yet, bring it back.
Yeah.
And I will say, one thing I've noticed in your house is you have just an amazing collection of chairs. And I mean, here we obviously have a beautiful Eames chair.
Yes.
Here we have a great ladder back chair. I mean, and they all just sort of like play together.
Yeah, and this is my painting stool. This was in my bedroom when I was in 4th grade with a secretary desk. And it's my favorite stool because it's high enough, but you can also
fit your legs
your
under,
thighs under the table, which most stools are too high. Yeah, I love chairs are kind of like hats. Like you can mix them up. I bought this Eames chair at auction. The only caveat was that it did not have an ottoman, but I'll get that. Maybe it'll be a different color. Maybe it'll be like it's mix and match, you know.
It's in great shape. I mean, look at the white leather.
Yeah, I love the white because again, I love a lot of white space in my artwork. I love a lot of space in general. It's also kind of an unusual color. Most people see it in like the dark brown or the black leather. I would love to
upholster. The wood is blonde.
Yeah, the blonde wood. I would love to upholster that in my own fabric one day.
Right.
This ladder back chair was in my house growing up. I think my mom gave it to me. And I just have these like yoga blankets stacked up as a cushion. It's not the most comfortable chair, but it keeps you very alert. You know, like I don't have any one of those like crazy aerodynamic chairs, you know.
That's called like puritanical posture.
Yeah, that's called stay awake by your chair. But I have the studio screen for my Mac, and a lot of times if I'm working from a photograph, I will trace the object on the screen with tracing paper if I need to work in a larger scale. So this is kind of like an easel, and I'll just draw on the screen.
The modern day painter's easel.
And I like to have like photos of, you know, near and dear friends, and my book here, Classic Style, and these were note cards that we did in a journal that came out when my book was published. This is an amazing
It's a gorgeous photograph.
treasure. This was a family portrait that was taken of me and my family back growing up in Chestnut Hill. So this is sort of like the then and the now. And I did
the foundation that you were talking about earlier.
And I did something that was really cool. My mom is friends with the photographer who took it, and I reached out to her, and I had her come and photograph my family in the same way. We did that 2 years ago, and the photographs are like, it's almost like a little weird, but these beautiful photographs that are very special. But there's something about this picture that I just love.
Yeah, the authenticity.
It says it all.
You know, I mean, it's just like, it's such a great little snapshot of a time, you know, that classic Americana. I mean, I think of that, I look at that and I think of Bruce Weber and his photography.
It's a photographer named Beverly Hall, and she's based in Nantucket, but she was family friends with my grandfather, and so that was very special to read. I'll show you that picture when we go downstairs.
Great.
It hangs in our kitchen. But I have, all my art books, all my inspiration books.
And just while we're still talking about this,
I
feel like this photograph is a great sort of representation of how you get to classic style.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like, that's almost a picture of like everything that you sort of see and hear what it represents.
It is. It captures, it's a very loaded image for me, and I love it. And it's a moment in time that does not exist anymore.
But you know what? You can sense the love in that picture.
Yeah.
And you can sense the love in your house. And you can sense the love here.
The love.
All the love.
So this is my bedroom.
So charming.
The primary bedroom. This is above the living room. So again, it has the same, has a lot of light, but it's north facing light. And so it's dark, which is great for sleeping and feeling cozy, but hard in terms of feeling, that same bright color quality that I love. So it's painted this beautiful cream color, which is like the color of butter. It's like, those 1970s Mercedes that were that beautiful yellow color. I sort of think of that. So it's cozy and warm, and it has this trim that's actually like has a pinkish tone to it. So again, it's not like that blue-white color that's cool. It's sort of a warm trim.
And with 3 children running around, you probably spend the least amount of time in this room.
Yeah, when I
sleep deprived.
We go to bed pretty early. We go to bed when the kids go to bed. But I'm obsessed with bed linens, and I love sheets and patterns and
obviously the
colors.
mixing, it looks so great. Again, the way you mix your patterns.
Thank you. I love, this scallop dust ruffle is something that I've had for 25 years, and it just kind of goes, it has like, because the walls are like this creamy yellow, the complement of yellow and orange is purple, so we have these sort of like lavender colored sheets. Love the vintage decor.
Yes, absolutely.
This is my security blanket. These are the best are from Schweitzer Linen in New York. These super high down pillows that are just like air. And this is the softest cotton from Deporto with a scalloped edge. So I sleep with that in my arm every night. And this is a French quilt that I bought on eBay from this beautiful seller who imports all these original French textiles. And you can see that it has like these hand patches. And it's reversible. So when it's cold in the winter and you want this like more corally orange flower, you have that. And then in the summer, when I want to feel like it's super cool, I put it on this side where it's just more monochromatic.
Yeah, this is great beautiful quality.
Every bed has to have a down comforter, no matter what. It's the perfect weighted blanket. And my body temperature is always right when I have a down comforter. So I love this gingham. And then these are John Robshaw pillows. This is one of the Dahlia paintings that I just did, and I brought it in here because I love that it had these sort of like neon pink pops of color, but it also has some of the purples and the more earthy oranges that are in the room already.
And for a room that doesn't have that verdant green that you love,
Yes.
it's here in your work.
So this bed is my favorite bed of all time. I bought this bed when my first apartment on the Upper East Side of New York at the Spence Chapin, sorry, Memorial Sloan Kettering thrift store. It was dark mahogany. I bought it for $300 and had it delivered to my 4th floor walk-up apartment. And it had this crazy canopy with all of this expensive upholstery and curtains. And I've had it in so many different iterations. In our last house, I finally took the canopy off. I had these finials made, and they slide on the top. And I hand painted the whole thing Pharaoh Ball French Gray, which is the best color ever. It goes with everything. It goes with colors. It goes with neutrals. I find it so soothing. And
also the height of the bed too. You always talk about, wanting space and air to go, underneath furniture.
Yeah.
And like it's like a foot up.
Never put anything under a bed. It's bad feng shui. Even if you live in New York City and you have no room, don't put anything under the bed, and always make sure the bed is vacuumed underneath. And I just feel like it's a metaphor for life. Like, you don't want dust balls.
Right. Avoid the dust balls.
Avoid the dust balls. Sometimes my kids will go under the bed, and I'm like, "Ooh, there's a little dust bunny right
Keep
there."
Keep it clean.
And
is
again,
this you and Chris?
Yes. So this is again another formal mantelpiece, but unfortunately the fireplace is non-functioning. So,
but so great that you still have this detail.
Yes.
It adds so much to the room, whether it's working or not. I just think it's so great that you really sort of celebrate that.
And sometimes I'll put a big potted plant in there, and now it's going to be, it's fall and winter, so I put the andirons in and the logs. And I like to have the life be in the flowers. Again, with the tall ceilings, it's like you want to go up. And we have this little angel that my mom brought for me from Mexico. And this is one of the other original paintings I did when I was traveling. Before I was doing artwork professionally, I painted my Ray-Ban Wayfarers. And then I found this cool vintage antique frame, and I had it restored and then framed with my artwork, which I think was a fun juxtaposition.
Really special.
These are like tester sheets from my studio, which kind of remind me of like flower petals falling down. And
do you have these in here because you want to see them in different light or see how you feel?
I like the pop of color. Like when I don't have fresh flowers in here, I like the little pops of color. This was a commission done by Frances Tolkhart, who is a dear friend of mine, and my husband had this made for me back when we only had my first daughter. And so it's Chris, me, and our first daughter, and it's this beautiful portrait, and again, framed in a very modern way. And I like sort of the juxtaposition of the antique frame with the modern frame. This was a painting done by another artist who I go to a painting retreat in Maine every summer in Penobscot Bay, and I bought another artist's work who was working in oil, just to remember that time. I bought it for my husband for his birthday. And so again, it's like a window into nature. This is a painting done by my friend Edie Vonnegut, who is a neighbor of ours in Cape Cod and a lifelong family friend. Actually, Chris bought that when we were dating, and it's actually watercolor, but her skin looks very alabaster. So we thought it was appropriate to put it
on the way to
the transition into the bathroom with the bathtub, because it's like, it's almost like she's bathing in the pond at night. This is our bathroom. So I don't know what else to show you in here.
And then you have some more of the Lisa Corti.
Oh yeah, so.
And I love this this table, this sort of side table here.
Oh yes, so this.
Again, like just the way you mix like these beautiful sort of like side, nightstands, but obviously it was a cupboard at one point.
This is more of the Scandinavian scrub pine furniture that I love, that blondish light wood. And this was a chair that another friend gave us when she and her husband, they're my parents' friends, they were downsizing. And then these are pillows that are Lisa Corti fabric. when you buy a dress from her, she gives you a little tote bag, and they fit perfectly the boudoir pillow size. So I just kind of put them here. And
Very
again,
ingenious.
it's that purple and pink pops of like that you find in the dahlias. This is a lacquer company table. My dear friend James, that's his company.
Yep. We love the lacquer
This was
company.
his collaboration he did with Veer Grenny.
Mm-hmm.
And these are some books by friends of mine.
Yeah.
And
Never have too many books.
yeah, I think in the bedroom, I really do like a more subdued, calm feeling because I really come in here. I don't really hang out in my bedroom except for when I'm sleeping or reading, sometimes meditating, but it's not the most active. There's more like life and activity in the other parts of the room. I like this space to be very calm and restorative. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it clean. I didn't hang too much artwork everywhere because I just wanted it to be like...
It's very soothing.
Yes, soothing.
So, Kate, I mean, this has been so wonderful to sit down with you and really kind of go back through our years together, but also just learning things about you and really hearing your perspective, one-on-one. I guess in closing, for this part, for this conversation, to you, what is home and what makes this home your home? And I guess also in general, what is home to you?
Home is where the art is. I know it's kind of a corny thing to say, but really, like, for me as an artist and a designer, it's like home is where you get to express yourself and there's nobody to impress except for yourself. And it's like, what are your favorite colors? What are your favorite furnitures, types? And how do you want to use your house? Do you want it to be private? Do you want to have guests over? So I just use my house as sort of like the whole house is like my studio. It's like a laboratory for experimentation and constantly moving things around and changing things up.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So happy to be here.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Kira. Welcome to my home in Brooklyn. Let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
My name is Kira Coffey, and I'm a writer as well as a set designer and prop stylist. My house is a little hard to explain. It's a bit eclectic. It has lots of handmade items that I've made. Being a prop stylist, I really spend a lot of time making things work sort of on the macro scale and the micro scale of items and colors and textures. I have a lot of artwork from loved ones all over the walls, and also there's sort of a theme of reuse a lot in my crafts and in my furniture even. I do a lot of thrifting and, well, you'll see as we go. My brownstone is in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and it's a typical brownstone. This was built in the late 1800s, and a lot of the brownstones in the area, which are townhouses for people who are not from New York, have a lot of similar architectural details, and a lot of the mantels look very similar. A lot of them are situated in the same places. Many of the brownstones look alike, and the neighborhood, I would say now it's largely a family neighborhood. A lot of families live here. We have a gigantic park really close by, so that's a big draw. And it's tree-lined and lovely. I've lived in this apartment for around 27 years, which is longer than I ever thought I would be anywhere. I came here from another apartment just one block away, and I'd been looking for apartments for months and months. And somehow when I walked in here, I just knew, I just knew this was the one. And the rent was a little higher than my budget at the time, which now sounds so low, but it had, you know, the brownstones in this neighborhood are all lined up, packed one against another. And this one, because it's the last on the block in the row, has a window on the side, which you'll see in the living room. And it's really unusual and it makes the space feel open. So that was a really big difference that I instantly noticed and loved. And I sadly had to tell the landlady, it's too much for my, you know, it's higher than my budget and I have to say no. And then she called me back the next day. It's sort of unheard of in New York for someone to reach out and say, I'm gonna lower the rent. I'm gonna meet your budget. And she did. Welcome to my dining room / office. This is the first room you come into in my apartment and it serves many purposes. My table is obviously where I eat and host dinners and all that. And also though, it's my studio. This is my tiny studio. So I do a ton of artwork and crafting on this table, and it was made to withstand glue and paint and everything, and not, you know, I'm not too precious about it. And then over here at my desk is where I do all of my writing and obviously a ton of computer work. So it serves a couple of purposes. And a lot of what this room sort of has to handle is having all of my supplies, but not be too obvious or visible, because not all my art supplies are attractive. So I have made use of some things like, I know, these are tiny little pencils that I hate to throw away because they're so useful, but they're ridiculously tiny and they don't fit in my pen cup. So those live there. And a lot of my erasers sit in this paper mache bowl that I made. I sort of have ways of hiding my supplies everywhere. And over here is a bookcase that I grabbed off the street. It was being thrown away. And this hides a multitude of sins behind this curtain. Tons of supplies that are not very attractive. This shelf, which holds all of my craft supplies, I actually found on the street. A neighbor was giving it away, and I decided to bring it home. It was probably about 3 or 4 blocks away, and I went to go lift it up because I tote a lot of things home, and it was so heavy. It's like super heavy. I don't know if it's masonite or what, but it's solid. And I was struggling. I didn't want to give it up. And then a young woman was walking by and just offered to help me carry it home. She didn't even know where I lived. And I said, no, it's not that far. So we struggled and got this home. And then she did not want to help me up the stairs. I said, don't worry about it. I'm going to get it up the stairs. And she left. And now we follow each other on Instagram. But I think of her a lot because this is why I have this shelf. This whole area is really not meant to be super elegant. It's really my workhorse, this shelf, because it holds so many supplies. This curtain that I made, I haven't even sewn it yet. It's just pinned together with safety pins. It happens to be a really beautiful fabric that a friend of mine who's a textile designer sells. And it's a linen that he calls the heaviest linen. And it was made to work for sailors many, many, many years ago. And the weave is so tight that and linen swells when it gets wet. So when it gets wet, it actually becomes watertight, which is just a super cool element of it, even though I do not use it in water. And then this tea container, someone gave this to me, and it was just sort of a crappy little tin. And then I covered it in paper mache to make it a little more interesting. This is actually a lovely piece. This is a wood elephant that a friend of mine, Matt Austin, made. And it has magnets on the side, and it came with he made wooden wings for it that could come on and off. And I realized it was much better suited for me to hold my pins. This is another example of me hiding my supplies in plain sight. And then these guys are just lucite pieces left over from some shoot that I liked for the color of them. And these animals will not be here forever. They were made for a shoot, and they probably will go to a shoot. But what's interesting about them is I made another one too that I don't know where it is, but I needed a lot of weight at the bottom to hold these long pieces coming out. So these are on boxes of things like baking soda, filled with baking soda still. And this one, I can't remember what's in this one, but I wanted them to be heavy enough to hold what was coming out of it. So those are funny little, yeah, that's baking soda, which is funny. You can hear it inside. So these pieces, a lot of these things move around and may live somewhere else in another month. And this is an artwork, a pastel by my mom. My mom is an artist. My mom has always been an artist. Most of her career has been in pastels, but she's also made sculptures. She taught me how to make paper mache. Well, she taught me a ton, actually. And so a lot of her drawings and artwork are in my house. I'm so lucky. The apartment hasn't changed that much. I mean, I was very lucky. The tenant who lived here before me was a really stylish guy, I think, because he had stripped a lot of the wood around the window frames, and he had done plastering on the ceiling and made some built-in cabinets, so I was super lucky about that. However, he loved the color pink, did not want anything that was not pink, and so every single room was painted like Pepto-Bismol pink. I think my style really ranges, but it's usually quite colorful, and I like to layer pattern and color and texture, so it's kind of a rich style. I don't know if there's a word that describes it all, but I would say colorful and eclectic. So this is my coat rack, not so interesting, but I decided when the coats are not on it, it looks sort of plain. And so I hung this artwork very low and in a strange place. And then I really liked it for some reason. It's so quirky and strange. And then I went further and hung my paper recycling down super low. This is a bag that's made of paper, even though it doesn't look like paper. And I thought it was fun to use it for paper. So this whole configuration is very atypical because everything's so low. This is my sort of door side everything table. You know, you come in the door, put your stuff down, and I have a couple of pieces that I love here. This pot was made by my stepfather many, many years ago in the 70s, and I actually right now use it to just put my sunglasses in, but it's so big and I wanted to use it. I wanted to raise the level inside, so I put all of my balls and super balls inside of it to sort of hold up. I don't know if you can see, it's pretty funny. That's what's holding up my sunglasses. And then this is sort of funny. This is my buzzer, really old, funky New York bell system. This is, I mean, it doesn't even work. I can hear the bell ring, but I can't buzz anyone in. And it was so askew and so funky that I decided one day to just cover it with all of this paper mache. This is a page from a gem book that I had. And these are, I just made these protrusions out of paper mache and covered them with old stamps. I just needed to make it a little more attractive. So that was my attempt. Who knows? We'll see if I change it again. And then these are some drawings that my mom made. This is a drawing of my grandmother's arm, which I love. It's just a little study she did. I guess she was planning a bigger artwork. And this is this is a good example of the temporary nature of my decor. This is obviously not a perfect or framed drawing, but I really like it, and I haven't figured out what I want to go here exactly right now. So that's a placeholder, I think. And then down here are a couple of other things that I made. I covered this jar with rice paper, marbled paper, and then this little doodad is such a funny thing. This bottom part was the top of a seltzer bottle, and then I made these little pieces to go on the sides. At the time, I was using all of these essential oils, and so each one held an essential oil that I was using at the time, but then I kind of stopped using that. So it's become a different kind of holder. This used to hold eye drops. Again, I'm just trying to hide some of the things that I have around to make them look a little more attractive. So that's how that evolved. In this photograph, I have a sister, and then two family friends from childhood. And it was taken by, I think, my uncle from inside of his car. And I think that's in the 60s? I don't even know. I wasn't born yet. So this cabinet, which I love, it's really simple and elegant and was given to me by a friend. The finish is funky, and I really would love to refinish it someday soon and get it either to be a beautiful, beautifully finished wood finish, or maybe even a beautifully painted piece, maybe lacquer, I don't know. I haven't done it yet, but that's my vision for it. My apartment, you could not be anyone else's. It really holds so much of me. A lot of the items are things that I've made. a lot of the artwork or art pieces that my loved ones have made. It's just uniquely me. I have my own way of doing things. I like sizzles of hot color here and there. I like sort of lowly materials mixed with really fine materials. So it just sort of has a texture that is me. This is my sideboard, but I don't exactly use it as a typical sideboard. I mean, I do on the surface, but it's holding so many arts and crafts supplies, I won't even open the drawers. But there's a lot of handmade elements on the top. This is a tray that I paper mache'd. It was a wicker tray that my neighbor was getting rid of, and I just decided to paper mache to make it more interesting. This is another pot that my stepfather made many years ago. And this is a really weird little piece. No one else would want it but me, but a neighbor was throwing away this funny little cabinet that had martini glasses as drawer pulls, and it was just sort of hideous, but I thought it had potential, and I added this whole yoke on top with paper mache, and then made little handles with clay. And it holds, again, this is like meta. It's hiding a bunch of supplies, and then in it are things also hiding supplies. This is my magnesium powder, and I paper mache this. You know, it's just a series of ways to make things look pretty. This artwork has stayed the same for a while. This is a lovely pastel by my mom, and it's her view out of her window on a sort of rainy day, which I love. And my mom's name, by the way, is Nancy Rothstein. This is a pastel by the artist Michael Oatman. This is another pastel by my mom, which I love. And this is not always here. This is actually an envelope that I made. I don't know if you can see. So I found a painting that was being thrown away on the street, and I thought, oh, what can I do with this? I don't know if you can see the really cool crackly texture in it. So I made two things out of it. I made this envelope, which I like a lot and have not sent yet, but plan to. And then I also made a paper file folder that I can show you, also out of that painting. I have no idea whose painting it was, but it was fun to just sort of look at it and see what I could make, give it a second life. This medicine cabinet, which I'm actually using for a lot of vitamins and sewing supplies, was in a really industrial studio that a friend had, and it had like it did have medical supplies, but they were ancient, and he realized there's no way anyone was using it, and so we took it down, and I was able to, I'm trying to open it, I was able to take it for myself. This is a little embarrassing, but I do love it, and I like how slim it is, and this was the original painting that was on it, so I like it for that it's a time capsule, you know. This is my everything table. It's my dining table. It's my studio table. It's my everything table. I sometimes even lie here to stretch if I need to hang my legs off the table. And this table was made by my friend Matt Austin, who's a genius. And it's made to be attractive, but it's made to really use and abuse. So I never worry, I don't use coasters, I don't worry about getting paint on it. It often has paper mache and glue all over it, and then I just sort of scrape it off and use it. There are stains all over it. I've drilled into it by accident. I mean, I've done some things to it, but it's a really great table, and it's on wheels, so I can move it around. This table has a steel base around it, and about 10 years ago I had a dream that I took some magnets and magnetized some scissors onto it so that I would always have them when I'm sitting in my chair working on stuff. So I actually did that. These scissors live on the table, underneath the table, just on magnets. And I was telling my friend Todd Oldham that I had dreamt that and that I did that. And he said, oh, well, that's funny because that's what all the couture houses in France do. They magnetize the scissors to the table. So I thought that was genius of me. And then on the table, I have a rotating bunch of things for the table. Because I use it so much to do my work on, it really just has to get cleared off a lot. So I don't keep a lot on the table normally, but I do love this paper mache cake that my mom made. It's super light. I'm probably gonna knock it off. It's a super light, lovely piece, and for some reason it's just so cheery to me, and it's so perfect, so I have it out whenever I'm not working on the table because I love it. I find vegetables so beautiful. This is just some chard that I bought at my food co-op, and they're so beautiful. So whenever I can, I use fresh produce as sort of prop pieces. If they don't need to be refrigerated at the moment, I just think they're so gorgeous and lush. So I have them out like a bouquet, which I do often. It's just something I like. My apartment's very, very old, and my radiators, they work beautifully, but they're very old and not particularly attractive. And so this is a radiator cover that my brother-in-law made, James Cava, and it's clever because it has all of these space in between for the heat to get out, but it's attractive, and he did me a giant favor by making this and designing it. And then above it, this is an old ceramic vase from Argentina, but someone gave it to me. I used to work in a flower shop, and the flower shop owner, who's an amazing artist herself, found this and gave it to me, and I saved it for a very long time. And I thought it went well with this ceramic piece that I found in a thrift store that's kind of bizarre. It's abstract, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I find it super beautiful, but it had this big chip in it. So I decided to just not use it for flowers and to just sort of make an art piece out of it of my own. I have a good friend who sells beautiful, beautiful things at a flea market in New York, and she sold me this lovely needle-pointed lion, which I adore. And I do feel like the black of that and the black of this and a little bit of the black of this candle, sometimes I find black grounds things, visually speaking, and so sometimes I use it to pull things together and look a little more traditional, even though they're not. And this mobile, which my mom made, has this lovely eye that's open on one side, closed on the other. It's sort of, here, maybe it'll go around, yeah. It's black and white, so it has a certain formal quality, but it's so playful. So I really like to have it here. It brings a little whimsy to this corner. So most everyone watching will not be old enough to know, but there used to be little tables that were called typing tables when people would type on a typewriter. And this was one of them, and it's really super old, and it had these leaves that would come up and give you more space. And it was just an old relic that was sitting around my mom's, and I covered it with linoleum tile, which I don't even know if they make linoleum tile anymore, but just as a way to have some color on the top. And it's on wheels, so it's a super handy little side table. I just covered a glass dish in paper. So it's paper mache, and these are some gems that I put around side it. And I like that it's low because I have easy access to things like erasers this way. And I change it up all the time. For many years when I wrote about design for magazines, national magazines, I kind of needed a blanker canvas at home. I wanted something where I was going around and looking at tons and tons of houses all the time and styling them and photographing them and designing sets. And I needed something a little bit calmer at home. So I used to have a more calm atmosphere, minimalist, not minimalist, but more minimal than now. But over time, I guess my work has changed, and I do less writing for magazines. I'm scouting fewer locations, and spending less time in other people's spaces, so doing more set design. And I realized that what I kept doing on set whenever I could was make props myself, make something myself, and some of it related to ancient architecture or Grecian urns, and some of it was just completely mine. And from that practice starting of making things, I realized, why don't I just make things at home to please me, to not have to do it for a client, but to do it for me. And what happened was, when I realized I wanted something, I have really good taste because I've been around some lovely things on all of my photo shoots, but I can't always afford it. So I started to think about, well, how could I make this? How could I make something I really like to make it affordable but attractive? So that kind of infiltrated everywhere into my apartment. I made a funky little TV cozy that no one else might like, but I love. There are just examples of it everywhere. A lot of my vessels to hold things are handmade, and that was born of me practicing that on photo shoots. I live in a brownstone in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and many of the brownstones have a very similar, not just layout, but they all have two fireplaces situated exactly like mine are, and they're so similar. I don't know if they use the same stoneworkers or designers, but much of the stonework around the fireplaces is the same or almost the same from house to house to house. So, you know, it's old and stained and funky, but it's quite beautiful, and I really love natural stone, so I think of it as a plus. And here's another thing. Here's a little, another one of my hiding things in plain sight. So a lot of times I'm working on paper or cardboard, and I need to weigh it down because of glue or paper mache. You know, I just really need some weight on it. And so I have this stack of marble blocks that some company was just throwing away. They were on the street in New York City. And so I have stacked them. They kind of hide in plain sight with the fireplace. And so here, you might not notice them, but here is my stack of weights that I use for my artwork. And they kind of blend in really well. And then this folder is the partner piece to that envelope. This was I just made it into a folder holding receipts. But it was made from the same painting that envelope was made from. Isn't it great? I love how odd it is, and I love the crackly texture of it. The idea of inspiration is really interesting to me, and I think everyone's different in where they find inspiration. I find it everywhere. I do go to a lot of museums and art shows, and for sure I'm interested and inspired a lot by artwork, but also I often get ideas from literally trash on the street, or like a string that's shaped like a letter that's on the ground. I have a whole alphabet of trash shaped like letters. I mean, that's sort of silly, but it's just an example of how I find inspiration everywhere. I find ideas everywhere. I think you just sort of, if you have a curious eye and a curious nature, it's kind of everywhere. For sure, nature inspires me. You know, walks in the park, walks in the woods, and then just lots of looking at, you know, everything and anything. Leads into it. I have a few fun things. A lovely photo of my niece and nephew years ago by the photographer Daniel Ballesteros, which is a gorgeous portrait. And then beside it is another pastel of my mom's of our old bathroom when I was growing up, so it's a little bit nostalgic for me. This is a super old box that I got from my mom. She had it, I think, most of my childhood, so I'm not sure where it came from, but it's a lovely old piece. And then this big crown box was from my dad. And it's a music box, which is not currently on. There it is. And it's a piece, it's a really funny thing. My dad in the 70s, when he was, you know, smoking grass, as they called it, and doing all kinds of things, would stash his drugs in this box. So I have my dad's old drug box, which I use for jewelry. I have two bookshelves, and this is the bigger one. It was made by a friend's father, who's a woodworker, and gosh, I just have lots of stuff on it that's gathered or homemade. This is a big beach ball that I made for a photo shoot that I was doing, and actually I made two of them because the first one came out sort of terribly. I'll see if I can spin it for you. And so I made a second one, and I kept this one just because it's lovely. It's paper mache. Very imperfect, but there it is. I made this paper mache stand for some thrift pieces. I grabbed these funny beaded fruits from different thrift stores over the years. A friend of mine gave me this gigantic red crayon, which is, I think it's a real crayon, and she got it from a thrift store, and I just keep it here because I think it's funny to have a gigantic. Sometimes I think a little humor is good in a tableau. Sometimes you want more seriousness and balance, and sometimes you just want some humor, so that's why that's there. Above the bookcase is a pastel that my mom made. I guess I seem to have a lot of pastels that she made of my childhood surroundings. So this is a backyard that was visible from our house, and I really love it. I have to fix it. I have to reframe it, remat it. It needs some help. This is a pillow that I put here recently. It's made by Todd Oldham's company called Todd Oldham Maker Shop, and it's made by ribbons that are woven together. I don't know if you can see them. They sort of weave in and out and make just such a gorgeous texture. And then They sit beside the second mantle in my apartment. This is a tricky little spot for me as far as making the right tableau. I mostly just use it for candles, but candles to me are not that attractive, and of course then they make a mess. So I kind of put together this really this tableau of many, many pieces, and it changes a lot because it really just reflects what I'm into right now. So I guess this is not right now, but in the fall I found this pod from an old, from a tree, and just put it in this tiny little vase that I have, and I think that makes it a perfect stopper. I have some dice here made of plaster that my friend Matt Austin made, and those just make me laugh, and they're so sweet. I guess this area is sort of to pull your interest in and take a closer look. So, you know, I have this lovely crystal egg. This is I found this in the bins of marble scraps and just thought it was a perfect shape. One summer I was eating a ton of blueberries, and these are from the blueberry, those paper blueberry cups that blueberries come in, so I made a little cast of them. It just sort of reflects, I guess, all of my obsessions, and it changes all the time. And this is one of those great rocks. I thought this was a real rock, and then it turns out this was man-made, but it's so beautiful. So I keep this here to hold this little candle holder on. And you know, when I go on a walk in the park and I collect things, which I do all the time, this is where a lot of stuff ends up, or a tiny little weird Barbie shoe might end up here, because it pulls your eye in, and so you're looking closely, and it enables me to really use some of the tiny, tiny things that I love. Because I use this mantle for candles all the time, I've sort of taken apart a matchbox, and so I keep my matches here, and then I took off the striker from the matchbox, and I just sort of fun-tacked it here so that I can light a match here. I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, there we go. So, and then I use that for my candles. But it's a way to have a matchbox out that's attractive, because the matches themselves are nice, but then I don't have to look at the box. And if the striker wears out, I just cut off another one from another box. I think it's funny to put things in places that are unexpected. So I hung this little painting on the marble mantle, which does not make any sense, but it sort of ties together this tableau and looks very sweet there, and sort of funny because it's totally unexpected. In any space, I like to think about balance. And so for me, I have these bigger pieces of furniture, and I use them to offset, you know, most of my bookcases I think of as like rectangles of happy chatter. You know, there's a lot of tiny detail in bookcases, and I put a lot of stuff in them. And so that's sort of a noisy little happy bit of energy. And then I like to counter those with sort of slower talking pieces of furniture, which are bigger and heftier and a little bit plainer. So a lot of stuff is from thrift stores, not all of it, but I have 2 of these chairs, and these are from thrift stores that I got recovered. And this is just a little rug sample that I threw on there because it's more comfortable. It's super soft silk. And then this pillow is a really valuable, lovely pillow designed by Alexander Gerard. And he was a mid-century designer of many textiles and objects, and I'm writing a book about him for Fade and Press, which comes out in October. And then the couch is really about comfort and a little bit of pattern. And what's interesting here on the couch are my pillows. This watermelon print, that's actually embroidery, and it was based on a watermelon print that the artist Ruth Ozawa made. And I loved it, and asked this friend of mine who's a costume designer if he could turn it into embroidery, which he did, and it's kind of this amazing, beautiful watermelon pillow. And he also created this pillow with the fishes on it, again, from an image that I loved. And so I'm very lucky to have these beautiful pieces of artwork on the couch. I really have a theme about trying to hide things that I have around a lot that are not so attractive. I don't love a lot of packaging. So on my coffee table, I'm often, when I'm sitting here watching TV or reading, that's the time when I'm quiet, and I often decide to lotion my hands. And I couldn't find a hand lotion container that I liked, so I just took a regular tub and covered it in paper mache. And then I also use these eardrops so that are kind of tall, and some magnesium spray that's tall, And I couldn't just look at these ugly bottles. So I made this out of this is the bottom of a seltzer bottle. This is a Super Ball. And I covered it in paper mache. I'm not going to show you what's inside because it's unattractive. But it basically opens like this and sits simply on the table, and I can bear to look at it. And then this is just a sweet little piece of coral that my friend Todd Oldham covered in drawings. I don't know if you can see. When he was on a beach in, I think, St. Lucia. And there's something so nice about the coral texture and his lovely little design. Above the couch, I really needed a lamp, but I do really love putting things in odd places. And so I got this lamp from my friend Matt, and he knows me well, and he said, let's just drill it to the door. And I don't use this door, so it's fine. And it's just sort of a funny, unexpected place to have something drilled into. So I find humor in that, and I really like it. And then next to it is a really lovely painting of my great aunt by my mom. So my mom painted this of her aunt. It's a beautiful portrait to me because it's very earthbound and specific because it's her in her kitchen and she cooked a lot. And yet the whole side of it, the whole other side of it is ethereal and her in the world with the clouds and the sky behind her. My favorite part of my home is that it changes constantly. You know, my moods change all the time. What I want to look at changes all the time. And so my apartment's sort of built to be not transitory, but mobile. And so I can change color schemes really easily. I can change items really easily. It just is always changing, and that suits me really well. Currently, this is my favorite little tableau. I've moved these things around for better part of a year, but now I really like where they are. I found some, it's hard, you probably can't see on camera, but I found some really beautiful dried leaves that have pink spots on them. And I gathered them maniacally from a wet winter walk in the park. And then I painted some branches pink because they were not on the branches. And then I glued this together. This is a Frankentwig of sorts. So those are sitting next to some beloved objects. These are rocks that my mom gathered, and I don't know why I feel nostalgic about the rocks that my mom gathered, but I do, and I love them because she chose them. And then this is a really odd, one of my more recent paper mache pieces, which is based on a Grecian urn, and it sort of changes throughout. I don't know if I can turn it for you very well. Yeah, there you go. So this, though, is funny because this whole portion is an upside-down plastic tub from pretzels that I found in the trash. And then I kind of made the rest of it with materials that I had at home, like big tinfoil tin, and these are from rope that I wired together. So this is, I really do love Corinthian Egyptian pots, and I was obsessed with them and looking at there's so many patterns that I love, and I just wanted to adopt all of them, which I couldn't, but I used as many as I thought worked for this one piece. And it's sort of, for me, when I get an obsession with something like a period of art, I just need to, you know, ingest it and then make something of my own, and then I can kind of let that go. Otherwise, it keeps going around and around in my head. This is a little vessel that doesn't always hold a rock. It's currently holding a rock. That's actually a fossil. But this was made from a little bottle of mouthwash. And then I added these arms, and it's different colors on different sides. And then the only other important thing here, I mean, I do love a tiny little pencil like this, because how did they sharpen that down so low? But also, it's beside a sculpture of a pencil that a friend of mine, Barbara Weisberger, made, which I really love so much. So these live kind of together, the real pencil and the sculpture pencil. And then above it this is another pastel that my mom made, and it's of a woman outside of a fruit stand. And I love it for many reasons, but one of them is we grew up in a neighborhood of working class immigrants, many from Europe, but really from all over. And to me, she captures a woman who is maybe not super beautiful, but in the way that my mother sees a lot of these people and the way that she draws them, you sort of see the beauty of who they are as people. To me, this is a romantic view of a very hardworking woman, immigrant, very typical of the neighborhood I grew up in. So this is my TV, and you know, like everyone else, no one wants to look at a black rectangle when you're not watching TV. So I thought a lot about what I could do, and I had big plans to make a beautiful textile cover for my TV, and then I just got impatient and thought, you know, let me just make something today so I can cover it, and then I'll make a textile one later, which of course I never did. But so this is just, these are just 2 or 3 bread bags, just paper, just sort of regular old paper, and then I just glued a grid of sequins on it to make it a little more interesting. And again, I don't know that anyone else would like this, but it suits me, and to the point where I actually have not made the fabric one to replace it. So it's kind of a pain that it's not fabric, because if it were fabric, I could just sort of whisk it off and throw it away when I watch TV. But given that it's paper, it takes up a little room, so it's not the perfect solution. Now I'll give you a little peek to my little bedroom. Come on in. When I first moved in here, my bedroom, this tiny little room, had a door on it, and I told my landlady's son, you know, I'm not going to keep the door on. Do you want to put it in the basement or something? I'm not going to use it. And he asked me repeatedly, are you sure you don't want a door on your bedroom? He just couldn't really believe it. But finally I convinced him. That was 27 years ago. I have no idea where that door is, but now I just use a curtain, and I only close it when, for air conditioning, when I need to keep it cool in here. Otherwise it's open. So my tiny bedroom is really hard to configure. I have a queen size bed, but there's this doorway here, which is a closet, and then the entry doorway, and then a big window. So there's not really a lot of wall space. This is the only wall space here that the bed lies against. In the early years, I had it a couple of other ways, but it's really awkward. Even this is not ideal, but with a headboard, I can sort of keep it floating away from the wall, and, you know, have it work. This lamp is lovely, and I don't remember, it's from a photo shoot. I bought it from a photo shoot that I was working on, and I can't remember where it's from, but I really like it because you can sort of swing it side to side and have it be above you exactly where you want. You know, being into patterns and color, of course I think about my bedding all the time. I'm never pleased. I never have exactly what I want, but I do really love this wool blanket that I found at a thrift store in London, and I think it's called, gosh, I hope I'm right, I think it's called an overshot blanket, and that means that the pattern is similar on the front and the back. So it has a back side, but it's really attractive, and so there's a certain way that it's woven, and I think that's why it's called an overshot blanket. So I love it. It's a very strange shape. I don't know why, if that has anything to do with the fact that it was in England versus our beds, because, you know, beds are different sizes in different countries, but I use it as much as possible because I really love it. I think what gives a home soul is the homeowner's personality coming through it. So obviously we all live in our spaces, but not everyone feels confident or versatile enough to sort of express themselves through it. And I think it's really important. And so even if it's a unique way that they like to arrange flowers, or their lack of pattern, or their abundance of pattern, I think once a person starts really coming through their space, that's when it really gets full. And that's when it's the most interesting. You know, I've seen so many beautiful, expensive, expertly designed homes that really don't say a lot because they're beautiful, but they're a little bit void of humanity. I think, to me, home is not so much a place, but an idea. Home is, you know, where I get ideas, where ideas start to bloom, where I feel fruitful and creative and also relaxed. You know, for sure, I find my home a wonderful escape from the world, and I need to sort of take myself back and escape sometimes and just be here. But still, it's more a place in my mind than a physical place.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Corey. Welcome to my apartment. Come on in here, get out of the hall.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Corey Beth Hogue, and I'm an artist, and we are in my apartment in Lefferts Gardens, Brooklyn. I knew I wanted to be near Prospect Park, which is about 10 minutes that way. So we were driving around the neighborhood and we saw a realtor sign on the side of the building, and I called. And yeah, they showed me this place. And there used to be a gigantic mirror on this wall. When I walked in, like one of those 1980s crackly deals. But I took it down. I believe I have been here about 13 years. So the process of the apartment has taken about that long. And because I'm a maker and I make things all the time and I get attached to them, and so then I start piling them, you'll see when we walk through the place, you'll see, you're like, oh, I made that, and then I made that, and then I made that, because that's how it happened. In a lot of ways, that's how the apartment got its look, is that I either made things for myself or for my job, and they've just accumulated over time. And plus I like color and handmade things and unique things. So for the most part, I make paper plants, and I started doing that about 10 years ago and published a book called Handmade Houseplants. And so I teach different classes online, and I have tutorials that are available on Etsy, and I also do paper mache projects like for the home. So you'll see those scattered about the apartment. So vases, trays, things like that, frames, and I have tutorials and templates that I provide people and teach. I suppose my favorite room is the room we're in, which is my little art studio, which is just on the side of the living room. So when you walk in the front door, it's a big open space. And so I put up a shelf just as a little divider. And so this side became my studio, which is great because this is where the big windows are. So I get nice natural light for when I'm working. And I have tons of little workspaces to do all my various crafts and make magical things. We are currently in the living room, and behind me is the front door, the entryway. So a bunch of my paper plants are here, which works out because maybe you can tell on the video, but the window is over there in the studio. And then I did this very wise thing of putting the shelf to block all the light. So anyway, if I wanted to have real plants right here, I never could have because the window is way over there. But that's all right, it works out. Look. 6 butts can go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had a couple cool great aunts who were the first or of the first in their fields for women. So the one that I inherited this from was an architect, and she graduated from Tulane in the 1940s, and she had a job in New York City. And so she brought this couch, or she got this couch here in the 50s, and I inherited it. So it came to New York, and then it went back to Mississippi. I'm from Mississippi, and then it came back again. That's where that couch came from. That one is also mid-century, but I think more like 70s, whereas this is, more like 50s. That one came from Craigslist. Oh, and this was my aunt's marble table too, from her big New York City job as an architect in the 1950s. When the door just opens to your living room, what do? Oh, so you just put a little tiny furniture, and you put all your keys and your umbrellas and your hats and stuff in there. And then here I have, oh, that's Ryan. These are portraits that I made of the two of us sometime, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe. And what happened was I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they had these portraits in their European painting wing, and I just became enamored with how they were done. These are very poor, I wasn't able to skill-wise do what they did, but sentimentality-wise, you know what I mean? The portrait at the Met had this nice green color. So I just assigned myself. Sometimes art projects, I just assign myself what I wanted to. So in this case, I decided, I need 2 portraits of me and Ryan for the time when we live in a grand castle, and we need like portraits above a great big fireplace. But that didn't happen yet, so now they're just here by the door. And so the green is inspired by the Netherlandish work. And then the two frames are also inspired by two different frames that are at the Met, a little bit earlier than the paintings. They're made of cardboard and paper mache. So that was fun. And this is a paper mache tray that I made for the keys and the mask, and a begonia, paper begonia. On this wall is a collection of stuff. A lot of it I did, but that's because I'm a hoarder of crafts supplies and of my own crafts. So these, of course, are collages that I've been working on this year. And Ryan put them in these nice frames because he's a picture framer. And this collage I did a few years ago, and it's basically like paper scraps from my paper art projects, and then also fabric scraps from when I was making my pants, because I had a period there where I made like 20 different pairs of pants. So there was a lot of fabric scraps. Oh, so if you ever like, oh man, I need a big piece of artwork for over my couch, may I suggest scraps and little tiny rectangles. Just copy this. People comment on this all the time, and I swear I did this in like 2 hours, and you can too. And the other stuff here is some various prints from books. That great big flea market that happens in Atlanta every third Saturday or whatever it was. One time I went there and I bought a bunch of prints out of books. So that's what some of this stuff is. And this, which is slightly hidden, is a print. And I have a couple others in different rooms. Is a woodcut by Martin Mazzora. And he did these like country crooner couples. This is Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner. Now, God bless Dolly Parton. Even though that's not, the likeness is a little, she looks a little wonky, but we love her. We love her so much. And of course, everybody knows that she wrote I Will Always Love You for Porter Wagoner, so that's who that is. That's one of Ryan's paintings, my partner. There's a few around the apartment, but he has a studio in Red Hook. I painted this. That was kind of fun, doesn't it? I followed a tutorial that I saw in the New York Times, although I had to follow it loosely. That's how I got inspired to paint the lampshade. So many books that they have grown on top of each other, but that is okay. Handmade houseplants, remarkably realistic plants you can make with paper by Corey Beth Hogue with photography by Christine Hahn. This is a tutorial book for making paper plants. All kinds of, I think there's 30 different paper plants in here. And then you get the templates in the back. Oh, here's one of my begonias, my paper begonias. And this little plate I love, it's by Sylvie St. Andre Perrin. She's a potter. We went to her studio in Paris and I was able to get this and another one. So I used to work for this designer called David Stark Design, and we published a book called The Artisan's Table. So I was kind of like the producer, project manager, stylist type person on that. And so we went to Paris because she's one of the artists in the book, and went to her studio. And so I got this. I love it. And this is one of my paper mache trays. And this little pomegranate is by Anandamandi Arnold. I think I'm saying her name right. I really hope so. A paper artist out of California. These were 2 samples that I made for a project for David 15 years ago, probably. But you know, they're sort of inspired by Claus Oldenburg. But luckily I got to keep them because they were just samples. This sweet little painting, it's actually a print, but I have some artists in my family, and my aunt, Leafia Smith, is an artist, and she painted this of the house that she grew up in, and where I sort of went to spend Christmas and stuff, my grandparents. So there's like a lot of memories here with cousins and family gathering and stuff. So everybody got a print of her painting, so that's mine. Okay, so these 2 guitars, cigar box guitars, Ryan and I made when we were first dating, and he's lefty, so he made this one. It's left-handed, and I made this one. They do play, although I haven't touched it in a while, so I probably need to replace the strings, but Yeah, that was a fun, because he's an artist too, so it was a fun craft project that we did together. And people always ask me about this chair. I mean, look at this wild fabric. This was just a lucky find from this place called Yesterday's News. It's on over there on Court Street and the Carroll Gardens. They have a lot of good stuff, vintage stuff. And yeah, I just found that one day. Didn't have to reupholster it, came like that. I said, who wants a loud chair? Me, I'll take a loud chair. We're in the kitchen now, / dining room. We traveled very far to get here. No. Okay, so this table I made. It is not fancy, but I did make it because this room is kind of narrow, right? I'm feeling lucky that even though this building is like 1952, I think, that it is a little bit open floor plan and that the kitchen, you know, there's not like, the kitchen is not closed off, but it just meant that this room is a little bit narrow. So I debated a round table and then ultimately I landed on this long, narrow table, which kind of doesn't exist, this being this narrow, because this is even less than 3 feet wide. So I just made it. What happened was I got 3 planks of wood and then the legs are made with, I drew them in Illustrator and then I sent them to a CNC guy who cut them. And yeah, so then I painted it this, you know, sort of Yves Klein blue, which is nice blue. And I painted one of my favorite paper plants that I like to make, which is the Rex begonia. And these are just Target chairs. Oh, and this rug is something that I inherited from my great aunts that I were talking about earlier, because they have good taste. And oh, this is a little sconce that I made with paper mache. Don't worry, it's a battery operated candle. Don't worry, I wouldn't do that to you. I just got a bee in my bonnet that said, make a giant asparagus, and so that's what I did. You know, there's some artists, like I mentioned before, like Klaus Oldenburg, that does make these oversized things. Maybe I was inspired by that, but also it was like the pandemic and I was like assigning myself projects left and right to like stay busy while I was staying home all the time. So yeah, this is just a tube, like a mailing tube. And then the bottom where it gets wider is an oatmeal container. You know, Quaker Oats, when they come in those tubs that are like that. So that's down there. And then these little parts of the asparagus are just cardboard. Paint, of course. Oh, paper mache plates that I made. That one is Ryan's initials and my initials and the year that we met. But those are just cardboard and paper mache. And this was another project sample that I made for David a million years ago. There was a trend going on there for a while, or his interest was, but this one was crochet. I do remember how long this took me to make. Do you want to know? 40 hours. I mean, part of that is because I was like, how do I make that? How do I do, you know, I was like figuring it out. Some I had to take it apart and put it back together. Okay, we do have a few real plants and a few paper plants as well. More books. Oh, this was a fun project. This is, you know, over there when I was talking about my collages and I was talking about how I painted the newspaper, that started when I made this 3D sculpture, this flower arrangement with painted newspaper. And this was a domino sugar package. No paper is safe. No paper is safe in my house. Or tube or cardboard. But anyway, yeah. So, and junk mail, like this different stuff is junk mail and stuff. Anyway, and then of course, one of my paper mache vases. And this little tiny desk, this was my work from home desk during the pandemic. Because at first, when everybody was having to work from home, I was working in my studio. And then the vibes were off because I was like, that's my studio space. And my desk had become my work desk. And so I just went on the interwebs and I bought myself this tiny little desk, and then this became the work from home spot. But it works out because occasionally we call this little corner the library. Doesn't it feel like that with the wingback chair and the lamp over the chair and stuff with the books? like, oh, that's the library. Meanwhile, there's like 2 feet here and then 2 feet, but anyway. And that's Ryan's guitar. Over here next to the dining room, of course, is our kitchen, which functions very well. And oh, we painted. You know, like we had the landlord special on these, so we did paint them. Over there are a couple more of those woodcuts that I was talking about earlier. This is another one of my pandemic projects. It was a Corey, assign yourself more projects. So I made these crocheted eggs. And of course they got framed because Ryan is a framer. I mean, I know normal people don't do this, but that's what happened. And of course in the kitchen. I know they're green eggs and everyone's like, where's the ham? I am vegan. I do not eat ham, nor do I eat eggs, but they're green, so it's a fantasy. So this wallpaper I designed, and this is up here temporarily, so don't look too close because it's not perfect. But this is up here temporarily because I wanted to try it out because I just had it made on spoonflower with my design of the white wood aster. You know, that native wildflower that grows in New York State and other places too? Yeah. And so yeah, I just got a small amount to try out here. And more of my paper plants. And this painting I made, and this is just sort of a funny thing where I became obsessed with the pattern. So I painted it on the table of the painting. So this weird thing is happening, right? Where they're sort of blending together. And then of course this is reminiscent of my paper mache. Just self-referencing, I guess. Oh, anyway, that's right. Oh, you know how there's that genre of painting when they have a plant growing out of a pot, right? It's like the flower of one thing and the leaf of another thing and the bud of another thing, and then sort of this like mix up of plants. So that's sort of what I was thinking of when I made this, hence why it's a Rex begonia vine, but it's also tulip, but it's also pokeweed and strawberry. Ooh, a bunch of my favorite stuff. But anyway, that's how that happened. Oh, and this is another paper mache frame I made. And that's, of course, me and Ryan. It's inspired by the Harvey album. Okay, so if you go onto the Met website, and you can see a bunch of their collection online, and because this one's not on display, but they have the Harvey album, and it's basically like Victorian women, and especially when photographs were new, they would hand paint the photo album. And so she had a lot of nice examples. You know, they'll have like the image and the photo in the middle of the page of the album, and then around that they will have painted, a lot of times with watercolor. Oh, this is my very first paper mache project. Okay, so I did paper mache when I was a kid, and then of course, I think I had to do it in like a 3D design class in college. It was like typical art school stuff. But then when I knew I wanted to be Mary Poppins, I did this parrot umbrella. It was just a regular umbrella with a straight handle, because you know how some are crooked, but it was just a straight handle. And I made it with foil and paper towels, and then I covered it with paper mache and painted it. I suppose the place is neutral in that I haven't painted all the walls, and my 2 couches are neutral, and the floors are very neutral, but then everything else is color. That's just how I like it. You know what color does is that it bounces your eye around the room. I mean, that's true for any, you know, when you're composing something like a painting or any kind of piece of art, one of the things that bounces your eye around it and keeps someone interested can be a color. I think I do that unconsciously, where I'm like, oh, there's blue here, so there needs to be like a pop of blue over there. And then just over time, the apartment looks colorful. If there was a flood that reached all the way up to the 6th floor, what would I swim away with? Oh, you know, I just have like a couple little rings that were my grandmother's. I know they're not big and they're not going to make a splashy moment in the film, but probably my grandmother's rings. This is the bedroom. This is where I sleep, and Ryan sleeps. More paper plants, and there's a little bit less color in here because I thought, oh, let's try it and like not have a clown car in the bedroom. So yeah, there's like more neutrals in here. And oh, here's some of that field maple that we were working on in the studio. I put it in here. One of my paper mache trays. Here's my grandmother's ring. Isn't that cool? Like, I don't know anything about it. I don't know where she got it or if it has a story, but it just kind of has that like texture. Isn't that unique? Oh, I love it. You know, she was an artist too. Maybe she was just attracted to something that was a bit unusual. So, I don't know. She was tall. The women of my mom's side of the family were tall. I don't know what happened. I didn't get it. But that's okay. Oh, so yeah, we made the furniture in here. It was another thing where I just designed the files on Adobe and I sent them to be cut CNC, and then we assembled them, those little side tables. And these little sconces are just cheapo Amazon ones, and I painted the scallops. And that little frame was another paper mache. And that's my sweet mom on a bicycle. Or she got a new bike, and so she took a picture. Bicycles are worth celebrating. We have to take photos when we get a new bicycle. Oh yeah, so the headboard is part of what we designed. It was just piece of plywood, birch plywood that was cut in that shape by the CNC person, humans. I want everybody to take a deep breath. Any paper mache that there's two paper mache lamps in this apartment. In both cases, they're built around a glass existing lamp, so that there's no chance of anything touching a hot bulb. And the bulb isn't hot anyway because it's LED. Anyway, so I got an inexpensive fixture from Amazon, and I had to take it apart a little bit to install my paper mache lampshade over it. So this little room divider is just canvas. Ryan helped me make it. I know you see like a room divider in a movie or something, and someone is always like changing clothes behind it. No, you know what's behind there? My rowing machine and my yoga ball and my weight bench. Because who wants to look at that all the time? And if you don't have like a cozy basement where you put all your workout gear, then you put it behind a folding screen that you made with your boyfriend out of canvas and paint. That's what happened. I mean, probably if you spend a little time working on things, like there's nothing fancy about this apartment, right? It's a rent stabilized building. It's made out of brick. Even, you know, there's no like fantastic architecture or anything like that. But I made so much in here that I've just grown more attached to the space itself because there's like memories attached to everything. Oh, this is funny. This is, I hope there's nothing in there that you don't need to see. But these are just inexpensive Target shelves because I wanted something narrow here for storage. And then I just sewed this table skirt and put this hunk of wood on here. But really what's under there is just cheapo Target shelves. I did a little something that was little Looney Tunes in here. Did you pick up on it? Can you tell what I did? The bed is not in the center of the room. Because the lamp is there, right? So it sort of feels like the bed should be in the center. But I said to myself, where are you going to do your jumping jacks? Over there. Because really it's kind of a long room, isn't it? For a relatively small New York City apartment. So I decided to put this here and center the bed on here and put the painting here and make this feel like the center. And then you sort of forget that the light is not actually in the center of the bed. But then that just gives me this little space over there to do my exercising. Hey, we're in my studio. This table here is just a door. And these are the little sawhorses I made in my brother's backyard. And I cleaned out for you guys, meaning all my art supplies are over there. Because usually this table is a big, huge mess. Have you ever seen so many pins in your life? Probably not. But listen, this is where I get to make things, and it's the joy of my life. And I just love art supplies. You know how some people collect like music boxes or dolls or seashells? I collect art supplies. So I have a ton of art supplies, but it makes me happy. So I do have tons of stuff pinned to my bulletin board. And that's something else that has happened over time, right? Someone sends me a card, I like the front of it, I pin it up there, or I make a little puppet of a dog and I pin it up there. Or I go to a show at an art museum and I like the little flyer, so I pin it up there. You know what's cool up here is the unicorn tapestry at the cloisters, you know, the Met cloisters. If you haven't gone, you gotta go. I was marking down which paint pens and which paint colors I used on a project, and I sort of liked how it looked, so I stuck it up there. Oh, that's me when I was, what, probably 5. My friend made me that as part of a Halloween costume because I needed something really lightweight. It's just MDF plywood. So I needed something really lightweight to carry around as part of a Halloween costume. And I just liked it because you know how when something comes together like really quickly and it's kind of like slapdash, there's some charm to it. And so I've always just really liked it. So it's been hanging up there for a while. And over here are some mounted animal heads that I feel like I made in a different lifetime because I did probably make them 15 years ago. But yeah, they're just happy. So those are there. Oh, here's my little puppet that I made after I saw the unicorn tapestry. I don't know if you can tell that it's a little unicorn and her little legs, you can move them and shape them and stuff. You know what I like about this is the possibility in here. My aforementioned, you know, obsession with art supplies means that just about anything is possible. And so when I come in here, what am I limited by? Time and my own self-doubt. But other than that, just about anything is possible. So this table, I kind of can break down and put back up depending on what I'm working on. These are just IKEA sawhorses, and again, this is another hollow door. So right now I've been working on these collages of geraniums. So here's all the stuff I've been using to do that. And I can show you, so I've been using recycled newspaper that I paint for the different parts of the collage. So like here's all the leaves and the flowers. Oh, and the different pots that I use, like on the collage. It's a series, so they're all like variations on a theme. Like I stuck to a really narrow theme, which is actually a new thing for me, but I thought it sounded fun. You know, sort of to make the same thing, but like slight subtle changes to it, like 10 or 12 times. So that's what's going on here. You know, it has 3 main elements, right? It's the plant, it's the pot that it's in, and it's the table that it's on. Oh, and the background, which is all just recycled paper that I've painted. And then I build with the flowers being in different places and the subtle shades of the green leaves. This studio, a lot happens in here because this little space right here where the light comes in from the side is where I take. So my whole book was shot here. So if I'm taking a photograph for Instagram or making a video for TikTok or whatever, a lot of times I'm shooting right here. And I have these 2 little walls. This one is green right now and that one is pink. And they're just like, it's just my really low-tech filming studio. And they're just sheetrock that I slide on the floor on a bunch of old towels. Whatever gets the job done, let me tell you. So yeah, so then if I want something different, I'll paint them a different color. And they're just big enough for the, you know, the scale of the things that I make. Right here I was working on a field maple. Do you know a field maple? In the fall, you know how some trees turn red and some orange and some yellow? The field maple goes this sort of yellow chartreusey color. So this, I was trying to capture it in the fall. So yeah, what I like about field maple is I think they look kind of cartoony. Like all the edges are a little bit roundy. Anyway, I think that's fun. Anyways, that's what's going on here. And then this is one of my paper mache shapes that I make. This is the first stage, which is cardboard. And I just cut it and assemble it like that. And then it gets covered in a couple layers of paper mache right? Right. And then it gets primed and then painted. So that's that one, obviously. And because it's my business, I can paint them however I want. Some of these templates you can get on my Etsy, Corey Beth Makes on Etsy. And this particular one, this shape, which is the same, ooh, did you get the echo? Ooh. But anyway, this shape is part of my class with Creative Bug. So creativebug.com. You can just search my name. So if you wanted to make this, there's like a video tutorial. And then you could paint yours however you want. Everything is labeled. It didn't start out that way. There's been years where it is a complete disaster. But earlier this summer, I cleaned. You're like, Corey, you still have a lot of stuff. What happened? You didn't clean good enough. I know. But I admitted it, addicted to art supplies. So yeah, I have to have stuff for sewing because I like to sew. That's my sewing machine. And I have to have stuff for my paper, and I have to have stuff for making paintings, and I have to have my photography stuff, and I have printmaking stuff. Oh, we know what's good about these shelves? I put the wheels on them. So then I have stuff stored behind, and it's all just like make do. You know, I don't have a, you know, those like, I see these images online where someone has like, everything is white and the shelves are all perfect. That didn't happen. I don't know, that didn't happen for me. Over time, it was like, oh, I have more stuff. I guess I better buy another shelf to put all my stuff. But anyway, it's working. It's working for now. And this is just enough space for the stuff I need to do. And yeah, like I said, I can break this table down if I need more floor space, because for dancing. Home means safety, comfort, love, and where you can be yourself. And I hope everybody gets to have that, right? And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the other thing too. As someone who's, you know, I have visual language in my life, I make art, I've had design jobs, you know, my place in some respects might look like I've put some attention on it, but more important than how it looks is that I feel safe and like I could be myself here. So I hope that for you too. And plus my partner's here, Ryan is here, and we have a really sweet relationship, and he's a very kind man, and so I just feel really grateful that I get to share my life with him here.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.